Chapter 366. Under the Big Red Trunk. Han Fei and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp were sawing the wood back and forth. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp didn't know what it was doing. Anyway, it felt that it was awesome and could do anything. Han Fei pulled the soft saw in his hand and thought quickly. What would happen if he really sawed off the big red trunk? If the seal disappeared, Yang Ruoyun would take countless Millennium Snappers out and they could almost sweep the Level 3 fishery. The Level 3 fishery. Regardless of whether the Millennium Snappers had combat power or not, they could easily overturn the Level 3 fishery. The Level 3 fishery. Of course, Han Fei didn't care about this. The question was, if he helped her, would he really get any benefits? Han Fei couldn't help asking, "You said I would help you do 3 things. What are the other 2 things?" Yang Ruoyun glanced at Han Fei lightly. "Do you know why people who come here will lose the memory of this day?" Han Fei thought for a while and replied, "Probably because they don't want the outside world to know that this big red trunk can turn people into fish, right?" Yang Ruoyun nodded. "You're right, but I don't know if you can understand that memory is a kind of power of time. It really exists, just like spiritual power, but more mysterious than it." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Memory? Is it a kind of power? Yang Ruoyun shook her head. "I don't know much about it. However, this big red trunk has nurtured a wondrous item, and it was formed from this energy. I want that item." Han Fei's eyes flickered. So Yang Ruoyun actually wanted something. That's good. He was afraid that Yang Ruoyun's ultimate goal was to become a fish. Han Fei asked, "Where is that thing?" Yang Ruoyun thought for a moment and said, "It should be under the roots of the tree." Han Fei said with a smile, "So, I have to dig out the roots and cut them vertically?" Yang Ruoyun nodded. Han Fei thought that the opportunity had come, but he threw away the soft saw in his hand. "Do you know how deep the roots of such a big tree are? You may not believe it, but the roots must be at least 100 meters long." Yang Ruoyun nodded again and then pointed to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "It can dig holes." Han Fei was immediately discouraged and picked up the soft saw again. "Wait, even if the nine-tailed mantis shrimp can dig holes, won't the seal outside be automatically unlocked?" Yang Ruoyun smiled faintly. "I used a secret ancient scroll to seal this tree, so if I don't remove this secret technique, even if this big red trunk breaks, the seal won't disappear." Han Fei couldn't help but recall that when he and Yang Ruoyun first arrived, Yang Ruoyun threw out a scroll full of runes. But could she seal such a big tree just because she said so? Han Fei was doubtful. But in any case, Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. This woman was really cunning. He had actually planned everything before it all began. Han Fei continued sawing and then asked, "What's the 3rd thing?" Yang Ruoyun pointed at the big red trunk and said, "I want a piece of its tree core. Take it out and give it to me." Han Fei was surprised. "So simple?" Yang Ruoyun nodded. "It's very simple. You and I have nothing more to do with each other. If we meet in the future, and if we are enemies, I will naturally not show mercy." More than an hour later, when the soft saw came out from the other side of the tree, Han Fei immediately breathed a sigh of relief. "It's finally broken." Squeak! Suddenly, the Millennium Snappers around began to squeak, as if they were cheering. Then, Han Fei saw a large number of Millennium Snappers swam up. Not long after, the incomparably huge big red trunk began to sway. Under the tree, Han Fei stared blankly at this huge big red trunk slowly tilting to one side and then falling down. This fall was also earth-shattering, setting off billowing waves and red leaves falling all over the sky. However, Han Fei's eyes were wide open at this moment, and he was completely dumbfounded. What he paid attention to was not this big red trunk, but the tree core of this big red trunk. The tree core was not a tree core as Han Fei expected. Around the dark red tree core, there were actually hollows. And in those hollows, there were spiritual stones inlaid one after another. Wow! Fuck! I'm rich! Not only Han Fei, but even Yang Ruoyan was dumbfounded. She knew that there was a treasure hidden in this big red trunk, but she didn't know that there were so many spiritual stones hidden in this tree. No, to be precise, Yang Ruoyan didn't know what spiritual stones were. However, she was shocked by the majestic spiritual energy contained in the stone. Yang Ruoyan looked at Han Fei. Do you know this thing? Han Fei swallowed and immediately calmed himself down. Instead of answering, he asked, when will these three guys wake up? Yang Ruoyan frowned slightly. Not too late, about 2 hours. Han Fei asked, can you knock them out for a day, or throw them out first? Hearing Han Fei's words, Yang Ruoyan knew that these things couldn't be seen by these three people, so she nodded, indicating that there was no problem. As Yang Ruoyan squeaked, a group of Millennium Snappers immediately prepared to step forward. Wait a minute. Yang Ruoyan. Han Fei hurriedly ran to the three of them. You have become a sea demon. Are human things useful to you? Yang Ruoyan asked, do you want their sea-swallowing seashells? Yang Ruoyan felt that she knew Han Fei's characteristics too well. This guy was a guy who treasured treasures as much as his life. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a big risk to come here. Yang Ruoyan didn't stop him and nodded slightly. You can take them. Most of your things are useless to me. Hearing this, Han Fei pretended to be happy. Don't be polite. He immediately went up and searched them. Soon, 3 sea-swallowing seashells were collected by Han Fei. In addition to the sea-swallowing seashells, Yang Deyu's black crystal axe, Sun Mu's sword, Mo Fian's long sword, Mo Fian's necklace, earrings, bracelets, rings, and jade pendants. Hey! Found them? The corners of Han Fei's mouth rose slightly. Of course, he wanted the sea-swallowing seashells of the three of them, but what he wanted most was the spirit-forbidden net. With Yang Ruoyan, a spirit-forbidden rope couldn't give Han Fei a sense of security. But this spirit-forbidden net gave Han Fei some ideas. If Yang Ruoyan didn't let him search just now, then he would immediately give up the deal between the two and temporarily hide in Forge the Universe. Han Fei continued to search. Anyway, as long as there was something on these three people, Han Fei took it all. Although Yang Ruoyan had become a sea demon and her temper seemed to be colder, she couldn't help but be speechless at this moment. This bastard is so shameless. He almost stripped them naked. Han Fei also took the opportunity to take a look. There were a lot of good things in the sea-swallowing seashells. The three of them had no less than 20 spiritual fruits in total. Among them, there were nearly 2 cubic meters of spiritual spring, and countless life-saving items such as various pills and flash stones. Ha, you want to catch me? If we were in the level 2 fishery, I would have killed the three of you now. Why do you have to waste so much effort? Han Fei was full of harvest and glanced at Yang Ruoyan. You can throw them away. Immediately, a group of Millennium Snappers controlled the red leaves to wrap the three of them and swam out. Yang Ruoyan's face was a little ugly. Now can you tell me what these are? Han Fei smiled and said, how do we divide them? Yang Ruoyan said, you first. Han Fei said, these are called spiritual stones, which can be regarded as crystals of spiritual energy. Let me see. Do you see these small and broken ones? They are all low-quality spiritual stones. A low-quality spiritual stone usually contains less than 10,000 points of spiritual energy. These darker and more shiny ones are mid-quality spiritual stones, which contain a little more spiritual energy. As for these high-quality spiritual stones, they contain nearly 10 times more spiritual energy than low-quality spiritual stones. And these, the most precious ultra-quality spiritual stones, I have never seen them before, so I don't know. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't tell Yang Ruoyan the truth about spiritual stones. The low-quality spiritual stones here contained more than 10,000 points of spiritual energy, and the amount of spiritual energy contained in mid-quality spiritual stones was nearly 10 times more than that of low-quality spiritual stones. But Han Fei still said it because Yang Ruoyan was a little far away from him and seemed to be wary of him. Yang Ruoyun's eyes widened. Is there such a thing in the world? She had never heard of it. More importantly, in the part she saw, there was 1 ultra-quality spiritual stone, 3 high-quality spiritual stones, 10 mid-quality spiritual stones, and as many as 32 low-quality spiritual stones. Yang Ruoyun took a breath and said immediately, the ultra-quality and high-quality spiritual stones are mine, and so are the mid-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei was taken aback and his face darkened. Hey, you're too much. You can have them all. What can I take? Yang Ruoyun glanced at Han Fei. You don't have the final say now. Han Fei smiled coldly. Humph, I don't have the final say. Without me, could you have sawed down this tree? If you want the spiritual stones, okay, let's share them. At most, how about splitting it in half? But if you want to keep them all, I won't do it. Yang Ruoyun glanced at Han Fei coldly. Do you think you can escape? Han Fei sneered and pointed to the big red trunk. Look at this tree, it's more than a kilometer high. I just casually cut a cut and there are so many spirit stones. You can take it all if you want, that's not a problem. If you have the ability, take the whole big red trunk with you. Yang Ruoyun was silent for a while. She was very strong now and could use the power of the Millennium Snapper. However, the destructive power was also limited. No matter how strong she was, it was impossible for her to break such a thick tree trunk. Yang Ruoyun pondered for a while. I'll take 70%, you 30%. Han Fei shook his head. No, 50%. I still need to dig treasures for you. What's wrong with half of the spiritual stones? Yang Ruoyun pondered for a while and finally nodded. Okay, then we'll split the spiritual stones in half. But you have to dig out the things in the tree first. Han Fei immediately kicked the 9-tailed mantis shrimp. Come on, dig the ground and dig out the roots for me. Chapter 367. 10 hours later, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp was as tired as a dead shrimp. The root of the tree was too big, and it took him a lot of effort to loosen the soil 100 meters under the tree. Fortunately, Yang Ruoyun was able to borrow the power of the Millennium Snapper, and the Millennium Snapper happened to be able to control spiritual plants, so she was able to tear off the endless roots below and pull them up. Yang Ruoyun looked at Han Fei. Continue sawing. Han Fei secretly instructed, 9-tailed mantis shrimp, go on strike. Stop sawing and roll on the ground. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp froze for a moment. It seemed that rolling was quite interesting, so it immediately rolled. Han Fei shrugged. Hey, do you have any conscience? How about letting my mantis shrimp take a break? Yang Ruoyun threw the hexagon starfish in her hand out. Let it do it. Han Fei smiled. He didn't know Yang Ruoyun, and Yang Ruoyun naturally didn't know him. If Han Fei were Yang Ruoyun, he would never let Master Hexagon Starfish go. The Hexagon Starfish was about to fall asleep. Since Han Fei and Yang Ruoyun reached an agreement, it didn't worry anymore. When it saw that the tree was full of spirit stones, its 6 big eyes rolled around. However, it didn't seem to have the ability to swindle spiritual stones from these two, so it didn't speak. At this moment, the Hexagon Starfish said, I am a starfish. I can't saw it. Yang Ruoyun nodded. You have abundant spiritual energy. You can control it with spiritual energy. Yang Ruoyun glanced at the Hexagon Starfish and immediately shut up, starting to saw the wood with Han Fei. 3 hours later. Han Fei was so tired that his hands were sore. The big red trunk was too hard. He had to use a spirit tool to saw it for 6 hours before he could barely cut it off from top to bottom. Of course, the harvest was very gratifying. He saw that the core of the tree was inlaid with hundreds of spiritual stones from top to bottom. Han Fei felt his heart pounding. I'm rich. I'm really rich this time. He found no less than 10 pieces of supreme grade spirit stones. The remaining 10 high-quality spiritual stones, nearly 100 mid-quality spiritual stones, and hundreds of low-quality spiritual stones. The root alone contained no less than 25 million points of spiritual energy. Gulp. Han Fei was about to take out the spiritual stones, when Yang Ruoyan suddenly scolded, "Don't move." Han Fei's eyes immediately turned cold. "Why, are you going back on your word?" Yang Ruoyan sneered, "Do you think I'm you? Although I'm a demon now, I'll still keep my word." Han Fei secretly muttered, "You're a man of your word. You're full of drama, okay." Yang Ruoyan stepped on the waves and landed on the tree root in a few steps. She stared at a corner of the tree root. Han Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. "Closer, closer." Following Yang Ruoyan's gaze, Han Fei found that at the bottom of the tree core, a crimson book was wrapped in spiritual stones. Book? Han Fei blinked. "Are you kidding me? A book grows from the roots of a tree. Could it be that this place was really a heaven-defying method left behind by a powerful being?" When Yang Ruoyan saw this book, she couldn't help but float over. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes glittered. "Master Hexagon Starfish, do it." In the blink of an eye, 6 purple lights suddenly appeared, and the 6-gate formation was instantly activated, encircling Yang Ruoyan. Above the formation, the spirit forbidden net fell from the sky. Yang Ruoyan's face changed drastically. She didn't expect that Han Fei dared to attack her in this situation. She reacted quickly and crushed a flash stone in an instant. However, to her shock, she hit the 6-gate formation and the flash stone couldn't be moved out. Attach. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp immediately launched the 9-star chain, directly locking Yang Ruoyan's hands, feet, neck, and waist. Han Fei grabbed a blue sea wandering dragon dagger and pressed it against Yang Ruoyan's neck through the spirit forbidden net. "Hey, tell these millennium snappers to behave themselves. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you directly." In fact, Han Fei was just threatening her. If Yang Ruoyan hadn't become a sea demon, if Yang Ruoyan couldn't control these millennium snappers, he might have dared to kill her. However, the surrounding millennium snappers had already rioted, squeaking, and seemed to be launching an attack. Han Fei pressed the tip of the dagger into Yang Ruoyan's neck, and blood flowed. Han Fei grinned. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised? If you don't tell them to stop, I will kill you now. It may be very troublesome for me, but you will definitely die." Yang Ruoyan glared at Han Fei angrily and finally squeaked. Immediately, the millennium snappers that surrounded them stopped, and Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Yang Ruoyan would go crazy and fight with him to the end at the cost of her life. Otherwise, in the face of so many millennium snappers, he really didn't know whether he could survive. Yang Ruoyan's eyes were cold. "Have you been tempting me? If you don't have the spirit forbidden net, what will you do?" Han Fei smiled lightly. "Based on my understanding of you, you will definitely give me what the 3 of them want. You definitely won't let these 3 insignificant people affect your plan. So I will definitely get the spirit forbidden net. Even if I don't have the spirit forbidden net, I still have the spirit forbidden rope." Yang Ruoyan asked, "Shouldn't your attention be on the 3 of them?" "Why me?" Han Fei sneered. "In my opinion, you are much more dangerous than them. If it weren't for the subsequent developments that exceeded my expectations and some unforeseen events, the first person I would have captured would have been you." Han Fei glanced at the book in the tree and clicked his tongue. "To be honest, I was really shocked when you became a sea demon. I once wondered if turning into a fish was your ultimate goal. Okay. It turns out that there is a book hidden in this tree." Yang Ruoyan seemed to have some resistance to the spirit forbidden net, so she could still speak. She looked at Han Fei with resentment in her eyes. "I didn't bully you, and I was going to let you go. Why did you have to trick me?" Han Fei laughed. "You didn't bully me. You gave me a fake map and said it was a secret realm. That's not bullying me." Seeing that Yang Ruoyan was about to speak, Han Fei immediately interrupted her. Don't brag. Your map is probably fake. I knew it at the time. Even if it is real, it is definitely a rubbish secret realm. Han Fei sneered. How could a place like the Seaborn Prairie not be marked on Old Bai's map? How could it be wrong? However, there was nothing on Old Bai's map. Either the secret realm was too rubbish or it was fake. The person who gave him the fish skin map happened to be Yang Ruoyan, so he was already 80% sure when he got the map. Yang Ruoyan thought quickly. You dare not kill me. Han Fei tilted his head. Oh. Why? Yang Ruoyan seemed to have calmed down. She looked at Han Fei calmly. Because once I die, these Millennium Snappers will go crazy. I am their king. Han Fei sneered. Guess if I can dodge it or not. Yang Ruoyan calmly raised 3 fingers. 1. The seal of the Great Red Trunk Forest. 2. The price of my death. 3. Guess whether or not you can kill me. In this place, my life force is not something you can imagine. You know nothing about this place. That's why I'm confident. Han Fei looked at Yang Ruoyan quietly. After a long time, he grinned. Hee hee. You're so nervous. I was just kidding. Give me a reason to let you go. Yang Ruoyan glanced at the book embedded in the vertical pole. Give me the book and I'll go. Han Fei said with a fake smile, where can you go? What if you come back? Squeak. Yang Ruoyan shouted at the group of Millennium Snappers. The Millennium Snappers circled around and began to sing. In Han Fei's eyes, a dark vortex was gradually pulled open on the upper water. Yang Ruoyan said to Han Fei, I've made full preparations before I come here. After this trip, you don't have to worry about me coming back. The hexagon starfish was shocked. Is this a one-way teleportation array? Yang Ruoyan took a deep look at the hexagon starfish, thinking that this was exactly what she had lost. This 6-gate array was so terrifying that it disrupted all her plans. Yang Ruoyan nodded. Yes, this is a one-way teleportation array that can only be used once. Han Fei thought quickly. Yang Ruoyan was a weird woman. He couldn't predict the consequences of killing her at all. This time, he didn't dare to take the risk. Han Fei curled his lips. Master Hexagon, are you sure she can't come back? The hexagon starfish nodded. Maybe. In my memory, this kind of array is only one way. Han Fei said angrily, what do you mean by probably? Can she come back or not? The hexagon starfish's big eyes kept rolling. According to my inheritance, she can't come back. Han Fei immediately relaxed and tied up Yang Ruoyan with a single spirit forbidden rope in his hand. Although it might not be able to trap her, it was enough to suppress her for a while. He couldn't throw out the entire spirit forbidden net at the same time. Yang Ruoyan suddenly said, give me the book and the tree core. Han Fei was amused by Yang Ruoyan's shout. Huh, you still want the book? Why don't you go to heaven? You can't use that thing. It belongs to the sea demons. Han Fei didn't believe it. If it's a treasure, I can use it. Master Hexagon, don't you think so? The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes and thought for a long time. That seems to be a divine weapon. Hiss. Han Fei was taken aback. Is this a divine weapon? Why doesn't it show? But Han Fei was overjoyed. Master Hexagon, good job. I like allies like you. I'll find you a girlfriend later. The hexagon starfish, Han Fei stared at Yang Ruoyan and didn't back down at all. Hey, I can't give you the book. And I can't give you the tree core either. You can fuck off, but if you insist, let's play to the end and see who can survive. Yang Ruoyan's face changed. Okay, send me into the teleportation array. Han Fei sneered. You think too much. Let these Millennium Snappers go first. Yang Ruoyan said, leave 500 and then you throw me in. 100 is my bottom line. Yang Ruoyan asked, how do I know you won't kill me? Do you want me to try? Yang Ruoyan nodded. Okay, leave 100. Chapter 368. Han Fei argued with Yang Ruoyan for a long time. In fact, he was not really bickering but communicating with the hexagon starfish. Han Fei asked, Master Hexagon, can this woman be killed or not? What will happen to the seal after killing her? The hexagon starfish muttered, I don't know. The seal of this forest is very strange. It seems to use this big tree as the eye of the formation. Since the eye of the formation is broken, it should be gone. Han Fei asked, so, can I kill her or not? The hexagon starfish replied, I don't think so. Han Fei was speechless. What do you mean? If you can, then you can. If you can't, then you can't. To be honest, Han Fei felt that Yang Ruoyan was very dangerous, although he knew that the two of them might never meet again after this. But what if? This woman was a sea demon now, and she seemed to be a very high-end species. God knew what would happen to her in the future. The hexagon starfish said to him via voice transmission, I feel that her life seems to be involved with those bad fish outside. She may be seriously injured, but you may not be able to kill her. Okay, I see. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, this was someone else's territory. She had been covered by the spirit forbidden net, but he still might not be able to kill her. If he couldn't kill any of them, these Millennium Snappers would go crazy and he would be doomed. It was not that he was worried that he would be killed by these Millennium Snappers, but that he needed enough time to digest this big red trunk. With his current Forge the Universe, there was no room for such a big tree. In the end, Han Fei and Yang Ruoyan reached an agreement. Yang Ruoyan would keep 100 Millennium Snappers to protect herself. At this time, when there were only about 1,000 Millennium Snappers left, she had to take away the Spirit Forbidden net and keep the Spirit Forbidden rope. Han Fei cared about these details very much. If he was careless and this woman ran away, the result might be two extremes. Han Fei was confident that as long as the Spirit Forbidden rope could tie up Yang Ruoyan for half a minute, as long as he could gain the upper hand, he was sure that he could take Yang Ruoyan down. After dilly-dallying for about half an hour, tens of thousands of Millennium Snappers swarmed into the one-way teleportation array. When there were only 1,000 Millennium Snappers left, Han Fei swam close to the teleportation array with Yang Ruoyan. At this time, Han Fei withdrew the Spirit Forbidden net, but the Spirit Forbidden rope was still tied to Yang Ruoyan. Besides, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers were pressed against her neck. When there were only 100 Millennium Snappers left, he threw them into the teleportation array together with the Spirit Forbidden rope. At the moment when Han Fei threw Yang Ruoyan away, the remaining 100 Millennium Snappers quickly chased after her. Han Fei was secretly relieved. There was no change, which was a good result. When the last Millennium Snapper disappeared, the vortex had begun to gradually close, and the place was about to return to peace. Just as Han Fei was about to turn back, a voice suddenly came from the teleportation array. Han Fei, I'll warn you one last time. You'd better leave as soon as possible. The seal won't last more than 12 hours. Once the big red trunk dies, thousands of creatures will devour this place. At the moment when these words echoed, Han Fei turned around and the blue sea wandering dragon bow appeared in his hand. In an instant, the bow was like a full moon. Cracks reappeared on Han Fei's arm and blood gushed out. Battle Soul Gong the sixth arrow, a violent blow of 6,400 points of spiritual energy, shot into the teleportation array that was about to be closed. I can handle it. So what if it lasts for 12 hours? Han Fei rushed down and immediately rushed to the bottom. He took out the roots of the big red trunk, waved his hand, and the spiritual stones trembled and were directly put into his pocket. Expand, expand, expand. Han Fei was talking about the space expansion of Forge the Universe. He had tried it before. The expansion speed of Forge the Universe was not fast, but 12 hours seemed barely enough. Just as the space in Forge the Universe was expanding, Han Fei reached out to grab the red book inlaid in the trunk. However, at the moment when Han Fei picked up this book, a red light shone brightly and the mist shone like an aurora. Han Fei seemed to see one hideous figure after another, roaring, crying, and fighting. Countless figures gathered in the air, and a towering murderous aura rose from the ground. Han Fei hurriedly threw this thing into Forge the Universe, but it was still contaminated by the murderous aura. He couldn't help but want to kill. Puff! Han Fei couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. He was horrified. At this moment, Han Fei spread out his hands, only to find that his hands were already dripping with blood as if they had been burned by flames. Fuck! What the hell is this? Han Fei was sweating all over. At that moment, he felt he was going crazy and couldn't help but want to kill. Han Fei looked around, looking for the hexagon starfish. But he found that this guy had floated 100 meters away, and 6 big eyes were staring at him. Han Fei was speechless. Master Hexagon, you're too much. You want to abandon me, right? I'm telling you, I'm going to squeeze your blood essence. The hexagon starfish, I'm afraid you will slap me to death. You were so scary just now. Han Fei sneered. We are allies. Why would I slap you? The hexagon starfish scoffed. That sea monster is also your friend. Okay, stop talking nonsense. What kind of divine weapon was that just now? The hexagon starfish said, I really don't know. It feels very powerful, but you can't control it. Han Fei snorted. I can't control it. I'll be able to control it sooner or later. Han Fei thought of the mirror of icy salt in Forge the Universe. That was also a divine weapon, and it was only a low-quality divine weapon. Even so, it was almost heaven-defying and could be said to be one of his ultimate trump cards. This book, on the other hand, looked like a complete divine weapon. He didn't even have a chance to open it just now, and his mind was almost affected by it. If he guessed right, this book was much more powerful than the mirror of icy salt. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. This book seemed to be more dangerous than he thought. Just holding it hurt him. It seemed that it might not be easy to use it in the future. Of course, compared with this divine weapon that he couldn't use for the time being, Han Fei got a lot of spiritual stones, which made him laugh unconsciously. Hey, I worked so hard to take down the tree and dig out the spiritual stones. How can you take them away so easily? Han Fei suddenly changed his expression and asked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to cancel the attachment. Han Fei shouted, Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, hurry up, cut the wood for me. With only 6 hours, Han Fei raced against time and didn't dare to stay for a moment. 2 hours later, the big red trunk was sawed by Han Fei again for about 500 meters, and Han Fei quickly collected nearly 30 spiritual stones. Among them, there were 3 high-quality spiritual stones, 6 mid-quality spiritual stones, and 19 low-quality spiritual stones, with a total of about 1.7 million points of spiritual energy. Han Fei was taken aback. Damn, the higher I go, the fewer spiritual stones there are. Han Fei glanced at this section of the big red trunk and then at Forge the Universe, only to find that it had a radius of less than 150 meters. He was a little anxious. Han Fei panicked. It would take time for Forge the Universe to expand. Fortunately, his Forge the Universe was different from a sea-swallowing seashell. The sea-swallowing seashell was the volume, while Forge the Universe was the radius. The so-called radius was the area within a specified radius. For example, a radius of 150 meters was the area within a radius of 150 meters with a certain point as the center. In terms of volume, Forge the Universe was much larger than a sea-swallowing seashell. But if he wanted to stuff this big red trunk, it was far from enough. Even if he could control the spatial layout in Forge the Universe at will, it was still not enough. The hexagon starfish was not as fast as the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, and it had already been kicked aside by Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei shouted, Master Hexagon Starfish, go and have a look. How tall is this tree? The hexagon starfish muttered, I can help you collect it. The space in my door is bigger. Han Fei sneered. Collect it? If I let you take it, wouldn't you take my spirit stones as well? Do you think I'm stupid? Han Fei snorted. I can stuff it myself. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes and ran out quickly. After a while, it came back and said meaningfully, it's nearly 1,500 meters long. I can't even stuff it into my door, let alone a sea-swallowing seashell. Isn't this a bit too long? Phew. Han Fei immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that this big red trunk would be thousands of meters tall. He really couldn't put that thing, and 6 hours was definitely not enough. However, if it was only 1,500 meters, it wouldn't be a big problem. Suddenly, Han Fei felt the ground tremble slightly. Han Fei's face changed slightly. Master Hexagon Starfish, go outside and set up a sealing array, the one you set up in the land of starfish. In any case, help me hold it for 2 more hours. The Hexagon Starfish said, that's very tiring. Moreover, the grand sealing formation can't stop an endless stream of foreign living beings. Han Fei said angrily, that's why. I need you to help me. With that said, Han Fei threw out a high-quality spiritual stone and said, if you can hold it, I'll give you another ultra-quality spiritual stone. If you can't, I'll crush your essence blood in front of you. The hexagon starfish was speechless. Rolling its 6 big eyes, it immediately took the high-quality spiritual stone and left. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly, feeling a little scared. Why did Yang Ruoyan tell him that there were still 6 hours left? She must have known that he would be sawing the tree here, so she told him so that he would be prepared. But in fact, this woman's words could never be fully trusted. The reason why she said 12 hours was probably just to make him believe that he still had 12 hours of safety. But in fact, it was very likely that there were no 6 hours at all. Maybe only 6 hours. Han Fei estimated that he still needed at least 2 hours to barely stuff the big red trunk into the trunk, so he asked Master Hexagon Starfish to set up a sealing array. 8 hours later. Han Fei sawed off another 500-meter-long section of the big red trunk. In the hexagon starfish's shocked gaze, Han Fei stuffed the 2 huge pieces of wood into the trunk. No. The hexagon starfish absolutely didn't believe that it was a sea-swallowing seashell, which was a space larger than the world inside his door. How could Han Fei have such a large space? However, at this moment, Han Fei's face was gloomy. He had heard the sound of the seal cracking several times. He was afraid that it wouldn't last long. The big seal outside had probably been broken. Could Master Hexagon Starfish's seal still hold? Han Fei overestimated Master Hexagon Starfish's arithmetic ability. The last section of the big red trunk was nearly 700 meters long. In other words, this big red trunk was nearly 1,700 meters tall, not 1,500 meters as Master Hexagon Starfish said. Fuck, I must find a math teacher for Master Hexagon Starfish in the future. The expansion speed of Forge the Universe was not satisfactory. So far, it had only expanded to less than 250 meters in radius. Because of the lush branches and leaves of the big red trunk, it could only fit 500 meters of wood at most. Looking at the remaining section of the big red trunk that was nearly 700 meters long, Han Fei asked nervously, Master Hexagon Starfish, can your seal hold? The hexagon starfish exclaimed, a large number of creatures have swarmed over. It's a bit difficult. After all, you gave me too little spiritual energy. Han Fei glared at the hexagon starfish. I gave you so much spiritual energy. Don't fail. The hexagon starfish's big eyes were rolling, and he felt that his tentacles were a little restless. He really wanted to slap Han Fei to death. How much spiritual energy did I give you? How much did you give me? And you even asked me to set up a formation. The hexagon starfish said, the big seal formation consumes spiritual energy. You know that. I just gave you 200,000 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei was so angry that he laughed. Why did you give me 200,000 points of spiritual energy? How can you say that? This starfish is getting more and more shameless. Han Fei still vaguely remembered the scene when he extorted 50,000 or 100,000 points of spiritual energy from it. Now, it was this guy's turn to extortion him. Are you saying that if I don't give you an ultra-quality spiritual stone, you'll go on strike? However, Han Fei really had no choice now. He had no one to rely on. In desperation, he threw an ultra-quality spiritual stone over. Hold it. Remember, leave a way for us to escape. We might be able to hold them off, but we might end up being surrounded. Han Fei snorted. Don't think about that. If that's the case, I will still crush your essence blood, and then I can escape with a flash stone. The hexagon starfish asked, Human, when can you return my essence blood to me? Han Fei snorted. When I leave the level 3 fishery. I will return your essence blood to you in the level 3 fishery. So, we still have a long time to cooperate. At least a year. The hexagon starfish took the ultra-quality spiritual stone. You must keep your word. Han Fei nodded repeatedly. I always keep my word. Hurry up. After sending the hexagon starfish away, Han Fei muttered, it seems that compared with Yang Ruoyun, Master Hexagon Starfish is easier to fool. If it were Yang Ruoyun, how could he be sent away with an ultra-quality spiritual stone? She could pack it up and take it all away. 1 hour later. The hexagon starfish urged on Han Fei's shoulder, are you ready? Hurry up. It's coming. Han Fei scolded, don't rush me. Are you urging me? Just hold on for a while, just a little while. At this point, Han Fei's Forge the Universe had expanded to nearly 330 meters in radius and 660 meters in diameter. Bam, bam, Han Fei had heard hundreds of similar explosions. Every explosion represented the shattering of a seal. The hexagon starfish shouted, if we don't hurry up, our escape route will soon be broken. Han Fei said, hold on for another 10 minutes, after a while, accompanied by a roar. Han Fei was lying on the tree trunk. Then, after a full 10 minutes, the tree trunk was stuffed into Forge the Universe. At this point, Han Fei finally took the whole big red trunk away. Although the hexagon starfish was surprised where Han Fei's weird space came from, it was obviously not the time to discuss this. The hexagon starfish shouted, hurry up, there's only the last layer left. Han Fei jumped on the hexagon starfish. Run, run. The hexagon starfish roared past like lightning and was hundreds of meters away in the blink of an eye. But just as the man and the starfish ran halfway, the seal suddenly shattered. Han Fei saw a giant snake tens of meters long, a giant crab tens of meters long, and a ferocious big fish with a mouth full of fangs and barbs all over its body. There were mess-swallowing worms, water locusts, dead leaf starfish, butterfly star worms, green-red snakes, and anti-heaven blades. They were so densely packed that they couldn't be counted at all. Han Fei swallowed. God knows where these creatures came from. Along the way, the ordinary big red trunk that Han Fei saw had already been gnawed bare by these creatures. Tracks of big red trunks had been cut off, and no red leaves could be seen on the ground. Yesterday, when Han Fei came in, the sky was full of red leaves and they were drifting around. At this moment, it was barren and barren. Han Fei shouted, Master Hexagon, speed up, speed up. Han Fei felt that the hexagon starfish under his butt was spinning rapidly and suddenly soared to a higher level. Hey, don't throw me down. The hexagon starfish shouted, throw some spiritual energy out. Otherwise, they will soon surround us. Han Fei took out some low-quality spiritual stones from Forge the Universe. Swish, 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 almost every 100 meters, Han Fei would throw out a piece. While throwing, Han Fei asked, why did these creatures suddenly appear here? Is it because the big red trunk is gone? The hexagon starfish was depressed. I don't know. But that place is special. Even if the tree is gone, there seems to be something else unknown. You didn't go to the top. Han Fei was taken aback. What's at the top? Han Fei also wondered, since the top didn't lead to the sea, what would be up there? After thinking for a long time, Han Fei felt that he was worrying too much. Right now, his strength was too weak, and he didn't have the ability to investigate these matters clearly. Why would he bring trouble upon himself? Suddenly, Han Fei laughed. Yang Ruoyun probably didn't expect that he could take away such a large big red trunk. No matter who it was, they would think the same as Yang Ruoyun. After all, Han Fei was only an intermediate dangling fisher. After a moment, Han Fei looked back, and the big red trunk forest had been drowned by endless creatures. If he was strong enough, he could stay there and let those creatures kill each other, which would give him a huge amount of spiritual energy. But he couldn't. Based on the current situation over there, if he dared to stay for more than 10 minutes, he would be drowned by the endless creatures until not even his bones were left. The land of starfish. The starfish here were nowhere to be seen. Han Fei guessed that those starfish had also run to the big red trunk forest. It seemed that there were still secrets there, but they had nothing to do with him now. Han Fei jumped off the back of the hexagon starfish. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. What about you? The hexagon starfish looked at Han Fei with his big eyes. Well, I feel that I've consumed a lot of spiritual energy. You, Han Fei glared at him. No way. Don't even think about it. I can set up a large spirit gathering formation for you and you can absorb the spiritual energy yourself. The hexagon starfish was speechless. Who is the stingiest? They all say that the hexagon starfish is greedy for treasures, but this guy in front of me is greedy for money. Such a large big red trunk and countless spiritual stones. What's wrong with sharing some with me? In any case, I did put in some effort. After setting up the spirit gathering formation, Han Fei ran 100 kilometers away and entered Forge the Universe to cultivate in seclusion. In fact, he went in to pry out the spiritual stones. In the end, he told the hexagon starfish not to run away. In fact, Han Fei didn't care whether the hexagon starfish ran or not. Anyway, he had countless spiritual stones now and there were too many things he needed to do. Those things he wanted to do before but didn't have spiritual energy to do, he could do now. Before, his spiritual heritage was damaged and there was no spiritual energy to repair it, but now he had it. With the 4th level of the true spirit fishing art, he hadn't deduced it yet, but now he could. Han Fei said, if you survive a great disaster, you are bound to have good fortune later. The ancients were right. Chapter 369. In Forge the Universe. Han Fei's body was full of spiritual energy. His forehead was covered in sweat, and his face was pale. At this moment, Han Fei was repairing his damaged spiritual heritage. So far, 2 million points of spiritual energy had been consumed. Only then did he feel that he had mostly recovered. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed that he would have to fight less in the future. Otherwise, with the current grade of the spirit vein, if it was damaged, it would consume a large amount of spirit chi to repair. Half a day later, Han Fei opened his eyes, and a string of data appeared. Owner Han Fei level, 36, intermediate dangling fisher, spiritual energy, 12526, 452, spiritual heritage, LV, high grade, spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level, 29, weapon, blue sea wandering dragon daggers majoring in gong, pi water vein technique, volume 3 of void fishing, spirit level, divine quality. Finally, I've returned to the peak. Huh. The upper limit of spiritual energy has increased a bit. Hey, Little Black and Little White are already at level 29. Han Fei was not surprised by the increase of the upper limit of spiritual energy. Again and again. Under such circumstances, if he didn't grow, wouldn't he be no different from a cripple? Little Black and Little White, on the other hand, had reached level 29, which shocked Han Fei. He knew how difficult it was for these two little fellows to level up. If he hadn't been lucky enough to go to the Soul Ocean once, these two little guys might not have even reached level 25. But just because he ate a few red balls, he reached level 29. With a flash between his eyebrows, Han Fei summoned it. However, something unexpected happened. Little Black and Little White did not appear. What happened? Little Black, Little White? He tried several times in a row, but it didn't work at all. This made Han Fei anxious. He immediately came out of Forge the Universe and tried to summon them again, but to no avail. Little Black and Little White seemed to be silent. Is it because of the red ball? Han Fei's expression changed. That thing was definitely not a good thing. If a person became a fish after eating it, what would happen to a fish after eating it? Immediately, Han Fei went to find the hexagon starfish. At this moment, the hexagon starfish was lying in the middle of the spirit-gathering formation, inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. The spiritual energy all over its body was so dense that it was almost unbelievable. The key was that it was surrounded by a circle of dazzling mysterious crystals. Han Fei recognized at a glance that there were gold, purple gold, diamonds, lapis lazuli, blue corundum. There were also some stones that he couldn't name, but their quality was extraordinary enough to be used to make spiritual weapons. Seeing that Han Fei was here, the hexagon starfish hurriedly put away all the brilliant stones around it. The 6 big eyes looked at Han Fei warily. Human, didn't you go into seclusion? Han Fei didn't have time to care about its treasures at the moment. He quickly asked, tell me, the red ball on the big red trunk is the thing that can turn people into fish. Haven't you eaten it? What's its effect? The hexagon starfish's eyes froze for a moment, and it asked in confusion, no reaction. It seems like it can help me grow faster. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. That's it? Are there any side effects? The hexagon starfish pondered for a moment. I don't think so. Han Fei was lost for words. If there is, then there is. If there isn't, then there isn't. Haven't you eaten it before? The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. If you say so, it seems that there is a little bit of side effects. The last time I ate it, I came back and slept for several days. However, I felt very comfortable after sleeping. And my brain has become more flexible. But Han Fei was relieved. So that's how it is. If it just slept for a few days, he would be relieved. Hearing that, Han Fei joked, when did you starfish have brains? The hexagon starfish was unhappy to hear this. That's just an ordinary starfish. I not only have brains, but I also have bones. Han Fei scoffed. Then where is your brain? The hexagon starfish's 6 big eyes kept rolling. In my eyes. Han Fei was speechless. No wonder this guy likes to roll his big eyes. So every time he rolls his eyes, he is using his brain. Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. So this guy is still stupid and pretending to be smart. Now, I know that your brain is in your eyes. Then next time you roll your eyes, I will know that you are using your brain. Han Fei waved his hand. Go ahead. I'm going to cultivate. After entering Forge the Universe again, Han Fei was much more relaxed. He guessed that Little Black and Little White must have eaten too many red balls and needed to sleep for a few days. Without the burden, Han Fei was extremely relaxed and even couldn't help laughing. He really wanted to see Yang Ruoyun's expression when she knew the result. You can't take such a big red trunk away. I won't let it go. 3 days later. Han Fei sat in Forge the Universe, panting. At this moment, the size of Forge the Universe had expanded to a radius of 1,000 meters and consumed nearly 15 million points of spiritual energy. However, Han Fei didn't care. A radius of 1,000 meters was enough to stuff a complete big red trunk. For a long time in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about the lack of space anymore. In the past 7 days, Han Fei finally cut open all the big red trunk. Sure enough, as he expected, the part of the big red trunk that really accumulated spiritual stones was concentrated in the lower area, especially the roots. At this time, after all the spiritual stones were cut open, he found a total of 62 ultra-quality spiritual stones, 192 high-quality spiritual stones, 1,026 mid-quality spiritual stones, and 4,102 low-quality spiritual stones. When Han Fei sorted out all the spiritual stones, he stared at the 4 piles of spiritual stones for a long time and couldn't speak for a long time. Han Fei thought that if Yang Ruoyun knew that he had obtained so many spiritual stones, she would definitely regret it. There were more than 270 million points of spiritual energy. Even if he expanded Forge the Universe to a radius of 1,000 meters, he still had 250 million points of spiritual energy left. Han Fei didn't bother to calculate the specific number. Anyway, he knew that for a long time in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about the lack of spiritual energy anymore. After doing this, the first thing Han Fei did was not to deduce the true spirit fishing art, nor to build a ship, but to make a knife. Ever since the last time, when his saber had shattered, he had been unable to use the drawing technique. As a combat skill of the million knife art, the Blue Sea Wandering Dragon daggers had an obvious advantage in the face of group attacks or when the enemy was outnumbered. However, when facing a small number of enemies, the effect of the million knife art began to be greatly reduced. After all, controlling so many knives to attack was far less effective than instantaneous explosive combat skills. At this time, there were 2 black crystal axes in front of Han Fei, which were naturally the spiritual weapons snatched from Yang Diyu. Han Fei didn't underestimate these 2 black crystal axes at all. In terms of material alone, they seemed to be made of some kind of extremely hard black crystal. Besides, there was a big scorpion sealed in the axes, and the scorpion venom would burst out when he attacked. Therefore, this pair of axes was actually a pair of high-quality spiritual weapons, which was very rare. At least, except for the water-dividing seal and the mirror of icy salt, Han Fei had no weapons more powerful than these axes. Han Fei remembered that Yang Diyu's spiritual beast seemed to be a scorpion. This guy didn't look like a good person at all. Han Fei didn't feel guilty at all for reforging his weapons. A small calabash appeared in Han Fei's hand. A pair of black crystal axes was thrown in, followed by a large piece of big red trunk tree core. This was not enough. Han Fei thought for a while. Quality was more important than quantity, so he simply gritted his teeth and threw Mo Fian's and Sun Mu's swords in. 3 high-quality spiritual weapons, plus the big red trunk tree core. Han Fei even almost wanted to throw the 2 stones in Forge the Universe into it. A red flame origin crystal and a 10,000-year cold crystal. Han Fei didn't dare to touch these 2 stones now. He pondered. If he refined a divine weapon that he couldn't touch, he would be doomed. All the materials would be in vain. Refine. However, this time, the knife in Han Fei's mind was not a long knife. The drawing technique, in the final analysis, was like the art of raising a knife, which could be nourished with spiritual energy or essence blood. But now he didn't lack spiritual energy, so he could use the drawing technique all the time. Such a powerful combat skill could either not be used at all, or it could catch the enemy off guard and slay them with his saber. Although the long knife was fierce, the blade was too long and easy to break. Besides, if he suddenly changed the knife in a battle, it would be very easy to be noticed. So this time, what Han Fei imagined in his mind was a kitchen knife. In fact, Han Fei had long thought of this idea. Compared with a long knife, a short knife like a kitchen knife was very easy to use, and its instantaneous explosive power was more than several times that of a long knife. Of course, the shortcoming of a kitchen knife was also very obvious. It was too short. There was a saying that, an inch shorter, an inch more dangerous, an inch longer, an inch more powerful. Han Fei didn't dare to agree. That was for ordinary people. For cultivators, if a kitchen knife suddenly appeared in the middle of a battle, would they be surprised or not? Of course, Han Fei didn't only plan to forge one knife. A kitchen knife was always his trump card, and a long knife had to be put in front of him. After nearly half an hour, a kitchen knife that was 1 foot and 3 inches long, pitch black, with a white blade and teeth on the back floated in the air. A string of data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name a nun introduction. It's made of demon crystal, silver glazed gold, grand white leech iron, 10,000-year big red trunk core, 10,000-year big red trunk bark, dazzling shell. It can cut divine gold and rare iron. Supplemented by a demon spirit, it can be a divine weapon. Quality ultra quality spiritual weapon detached soul a nun recastable unrefined a note, it's smelted and recastable from multiple high quality spiritual weapons. It needs to be attached to a soul to show its perfect form. Gulp. Han Fei smiled foolishly, reached out to take the knife, and looked at it up, down, left and right. Its hilt seemed to be melted with a lot of things, and the blade was mainly made of black crystal, without any impurities. It was simply perfect. Han Fei gently put the blade on his arm, and then with a gentle cut, his skin had been cut open. His blood sank into the blade, and for a moment, the blood was shining brightly. This knife actually swallowed several mouthfuls of his blood before it recognized him as its master. You can drink so much. I'll call you Blood Drinker from now on. Unfortunately, this knife hadn't been attached to a soul and had no spirituality. Otherwise, it would definitely mock Han Fei. What a lousy name. There were at least 8,000 knives called Blood Drinker in this world. What a bumpkin. After a while, Han Fei summoned a kitchen knife in his hand. He raised the knife and looked at the big red trunk, slashed hard, and more than half of the knife blade sank into the trunk. Ha, this is great. Han Fei played with the kitchen knife and smirked. Suddenly, he thought of Xia Shaochan and couldn't help imagining Xia Shaochan carrying a dagger of this level. If it stabbed him, he wouldn't even have a chance to block it. Just a casual stab would be enough to pierce through him. Alas, no. I have to find the treasures left by Ren Tianfei as soon as possible. Otherwise, I don't know when I can master the indestructible body. Thinking of this, Han Fei pondered. Now that there was enough spiritual energy, he had to find a place to deduce the true spirit fishing art. Only by deducing the true spirit fishing art could he attract thunderbolts. Only by attracting thunderbolts could he undergo the life or death tempering. Only by experiencing the life or death tempering could he break through the current barrier of the indestructible body refining art. Of course, now Han Fei was still at the bottom of the sea and didn't plan to deduce it. Which thunderbolt could cross a kilometer of the sea and reach the bottom of the sea? Besides, didn't Yang Ruoyun say that in the space inside the seaweed city wall, the bottom of the sea and the surface of the sea were actually not connected to each other? Forget it, let's wait a little longer. After the knife was made, Han Fei didn't rush to deduce it. Since Han Fei wasn't in a hurry to build a boat. Although in Forge the Universe at this moment, the big red trunk occupied most of the area. Han Fei glanced at the fish avatar technique. This time, Yang Ruoyun's successful transformation really shocked him. Han Fei didn't think that in the town under the 1,000-star city, there might be a person who could really transform into a fish. Even Old Bai was horrified when he heard the fish avatar technique, let alone Yang Ruoyun who was only a few years older than him. Looking at the deduction cost of 1 million points, Han Fei didn't even blink. Deduce. After a while, the data showed, existing combat skills, fish avatar technique, mystic level, ultra quality, introduction, a semi-finished avatar type combat skill. Based on the research experience of thousands of years of predecessors, it only has reference value. Deduction cost, 0.50000000 deduction result, unknown note, the direction of the deduction is unknown. The result of the deduction is unknown. Please be cautious. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. As expected. Even with 1 million points of spiritual energy, he could only deduce the fish avatar technique from a mystic level mid-quality to a mystic level ultra-quality. In fact, the content of the message had only changed a few words. And others. The fish avatar technique was a very profound knowledge, and there were a lot of examples for reference. He couldn't just keep deducing. Otherwise, it would be ridiculous if he didn't even know why he was deducing in the end. It took Han Fei 2 full days to finish reading the mysterious level ultra-quality fish transformation technique. His expression was a little strange. There were as many as 9 successful examples in the book. The most amazing person was a mother who actually had a uterus from the womb. He practiced the fish transformation technique. In the end, the mother died, but the fetus was successfully born as a fish. This was the only human being that Han Fei had seen so far who was born as a rare creature. But Han Fei wasn't sure whether the child was a human or not. If it was a human being, then it was born as a fish. But if he was a fish, the book said that the child eventually became an extremely intelligent fish, able to understand human language, and able to receive any instructions from humans. But in the end, the child died in a sea adventure. From then on, there was no second such child. The other experiments were similar. All the sacrifices were just to make up for the shortcomings of the fish avatar technique. On the third day, Han Fei deduced again. This time, Han Fei was overjoyed. The predecessors seemed to have found a way. Fish avatar technique, spirit level mid-quality, introduction, a semi-finished transformation type combat skill that successfully transforms a human into a fish. The survival rate is as high as 50%, which is a great progress in the history of transformation. Deduction cost, 0-10 million. Deduction result, unknown. Note, the direction of the deduction is unknown. The result of the deduction is unknown. Please be careful. Han Fei was overjoyed and immediately entered the state of research. 3 days later, he came back to his senses from the book. The idea of the fish avatar technique this time was too imaginative. Someone proposed that fish also had meridians, flesh and blood, bones, and internal organs. So he guessed that it was not necessary to transform a human being completely, but only needed to mutate the meridians, flesh and blood, bones, and internal organs of a human being. Because of this conjecture, the overall development of the fish avatar technique became the mutation of human beings. The point was that this idea was successful. There was a period of time in history when many people took the initiative to carry out experiments. Of course, this conjecture was still very flawed. There were thousands of creatures in the ocean, not only fish, but also crabs, starfish, conches, lobsters, octopuses, cuttlefish. Billions of species, but human beings could only transform into fish. Besides, the fish that human beings transformed into, to be precise, did not look like fish, but more like monsters that were neither human nor fish. Therefore, some people called this kind of human beings demons, or sea demons. Later, because the major floating cities banned the research of the fish avatar technique, the development of the fish avatar technique plummeted. At the same time, the major cities ordered the slaughter of sea demons, which almost led to the extinction of the sea demons. Seeing this, Han Fei was shocked. Sea demons? Gulp. Han Fei vaguely felt that he seemed to have discovered a big secret. Yang Ruoyun was a sea demon. But Yang Ruoyun not only turned into a fish, but also into a human. Ren. Didn't it mean that the fish avatar technique had actually been further developed? Han Fei was shocked. It turned out that the first sea demons were actually human beings. So, theoretically speaking, the so-called demons were actually human beings. The only difference was that under the conditions at that time, those sea demons didn't have the ability to transform back into human beings. This was impossible. After seeing the deduction cost of 10 million, Han Fei gritted his teeth. He had already deduced this far. How could he give up? Immediately, he chose to continue deducing, because there seemed to be a shocking secret hidden here. Deduce. Fish avatar technique, demon level, low quality, introduction, a semi-finished transformation combat skill that successfully transforms a human into a fish, with a survival rate as high as 80%. Part of human fun. Transform into a demon. Deduction cost, 0, 30 million. Deduction result, unknown. Note, you have reached the current deduction limit of the demon purification pot. Deducing again will involve the mysteries of heaven and earth and will damage the demon purification pot. Hiss, when Han Fei saw someone fun from human fun. Lai went out and transformed into a demon. He knew that something shocking must have happened. When he saw the note, he was completely stunned. Deduction limit. Deducing again will involve the mysteries of heaven and earth. Damn, isn't the demon purification pot omnipotent? How can it be damaged? I've already deduced to this point, and you're telling me that you can't deduce anymore? Chapter 370. Han Fei was rather speechless. I've spent nearly 20 million points of spiritual energy, and I'm going to work hard to deduce the perfect fish transformation technique so that I can transform into a fish or a human at any time. In the end, you're telling me that you can't deduce it anymore? Then, wouldn't my nearly 20 million points of spiritual energy be wasted? Han Fei couldn't have looked more awful. He could only study the demon-level, low-quality fish avatar technique with a gloomy face. 2 days later. Han Fei finally finished reading all the contents of the book. Now that he had the cultivation method, it was indeed very profound. However, this was not the key point. Han Fei always felt that such a cultivation method was not perfect enough. Because it still couldn't completely turn people into a fixed type of fish, but instead formed a new species. It was nothing compared to the Monkey King's 72 transformations, let alone turning people into crabs or octopuses. Moreover, once Exu after cultivating, the result was irreversible. It meant that one would become a fish for all eternity. Of course Han Fei wouldn't. Things like cultivation. From the beginning, he only wanted to make it convenient for him to search for treasures and explore the sea. In the end, before they even found the treasure, the initial investment had already exceeded their expectations. In the book, except for Exu in addition to cultivation methods, it also talked about a peerless genius who incited countless people to cultivate together. He practiced the fish transformation technique. As a result, they formed a sect called the Church of God. Many ordinary fishermen and fishing masters were greatly encouraged. They felt that human beings were the real masters of the ocean and called for everyone to return to the ocean and their homeland. Then, the matter about the fish avatar technique really exploded. Rumor had it that countless experts had attacked in an attempt to kill the sea demons. But among the sea demons, there seemed to be a small number of experts who had fled. From then on, all the cities issued an order that anyone who mentioned the fish avatar technique would be killed. Those who practiced the fish avatar technique would be punished. As time passed, this story seemed to have fallen silent, and no one mentioned it again. But now, Han Fei learned such amazing information from a dilapidated mortal-level fish avatar technique. He could only suppress it in his heart. At this moment, he finally knew why Old Bai warned him that the fish avatar technique was forbidden. But Han Fei's heart was itching. There must be a follow-up. In the end, he only had a rough understanding of the early stages, and it was cut off. Wasn't he just whetting his appetite? However, now that things had come to this point, Han Fei could only put aside the fish transformation technique. Han Fei was not in a hurry to go out. He couldn't learn the fish avatar technique that he had been longing for, but he could refine a fishing boat. He had planned to dig a regular big red trunk from the center of the seaborne prairie according to Lord Seven's method on the dragon boat. Then, he would look for some auxiliary items such as fish crystal. But now, he had a ready-made 10,000-year-old big red trunk, which was comparable to a spiritual artifact. What other materials did he need to find? Besides, Han Fei had collected a lot of sea-swallowing seashells with all kinds of weapons inside. At the very least, they were high-grade magic treasures. There were dozens of inferior-grade spirit weapons and piles of various ores. Although those things couldn't be the main components of the boat, they were more than enough to serve as surface decorations, such as windbreaks, lower decks, hanging stone buckles, and some color-matching, streamlines, and unloading devices. Han Fei licked his lips and raised the small calabash in his hand. Although I have spiritual energy now, there's still a long way to go. It won't take much spiritual energy to refine a boat, right? Well, it definitely won't take much. When the demon purification pot sucked in a large section of the 50-meter-long big red trunk, Han Fei immediately took a breath. Sure enough, it could be refined. Han Fei was overjoyed. He was afraid that he couldn't refine something as big as a fishing boat and had to carve it by hand. But to his surprise, the demon purification pot seemed to be able to refine it as long as there was spiritual energy. Then, Han Fei threw in a large number of weapons, stones, and 4 floating stones. Han Fei closed his eyes and waved his hands in the air. Hey! I don't want anything. The cabin is designed to be semi-open and streamlined. Fish cabin. I want a small fish cabin. As for the fence, forget it. I'll design it as a whole. In his mind, Han Fei simulated a cool small yacht. However, unlike a normal yacht, Han Fei's fishing boat was designed to be fast. The yacht was streamlined. Even the theoretical sunbathing deck on the front side was removed, leaving only a fish cabin at the back of the cabin, and the part of the fish cabin cover was designed as the rear deck of the boat. The whole fishing boat was designed in the shape of an awl for Han Fei. It looked like a supercar. Because Han Fei also designed 2 headlight-like streamlines on the bow of the boat. Next to these 2 fake lights, refine, with a thought from Han Fei, a large amount of spiritual energy swarmed out of the pile of spiritual stones and rushed directly to the demon purification pot. Hey, hey, hey! Don't absorb too much, don't absorb too much. Don't use too much. Seeing that the demon purification pot began to absorb spiritual energy directly from the pile of spiritual stones, Han Fei was displeased. He changed the terrain and moved the ultra-quality spiritual stones, high-quality spiritual stones, and mid-quality spiritual stones hundreds of meters away, leaving only the low-quality spiritual stones. However, the low-quality spiritual stones contained very little spiritual energy. Each one only contained more than 10,000 points of spiritual energy. Gotcha! 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 Han Fei's eyes widened. Almost every minute, 5 or 6 low-quality spiritual stones shattered into powder. Every time the cracking sound rang, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. This rhythm lasted for a full hour, and the speed of the low-quality spiritual stones shattering slowed down. Even so, 2 or 3 pieces would shatter in a minute. Han Fei's tears almost fell. Hey, 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 that's enough. This is the 900th piece. That's more than 9 million points of spiritual energy. However, Han Fei could only worry. The low-quality spiritual stones were still shattering. When 106 pieces were shattered, Han Fei's heart began to hurt, and the refining was finally over. Suddenly, a red and white fishing boat with a length of 1 meter appeared in his sight. Just a glance at it made Han Fei drool. Who wouldn't love a yacht when they were on the sea? Besides, this yacht was designed by Han Fei himself. Every arc was shining brilliantly, and every line was the result of Han Fei's painstaking efforts. In his eyes, information emerged. Name a nun introduction. It's made of 10,000-year-old big red trunk, blue sea wandering dragon bone, floating stone, red blood silver, white space stone. It's extremely fast and can travel 60,000 kilometers a day. The hull can withstand the damage of mid-quality spiritual weapons. Due to limited materials, it needs to be attached to a sole before it can speed up again. Quality: a mid-quality spiritual weapon attached sole, a non-recastable, unrefined. A note: due to limited forging materials, it can be cast into a mid-quality spiritual weapon at most. Han Fei's mouth twitched. What? My fishing boat is a spiritual weapon level. It cost me more than 10 million points of spiritual energy, and you only gave me 60,000 kilometers a day. Smack. Han Fei slapped the fishing boat and frowned. Is there something wrong with the design? The rumored ghost speed divine boat can travel 50,000 kilometers a day. This is made of ultra-quality materials, okay? The more Han Fei thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately refined a small carving knife and prepared to carve arrays on the boat. According to the records of the spirit-gathering scripture, the speed arrays were divided into water array, wind array, tide array, and as many as 12 kinds of arrays. It was a technique that used the power of nature to increase the speed, which was not difficult. But even if the difficulty was not high, it was still a very troublesome task to link up the formation and cover the entire ship. Han Fei picked up the carving knife and turned it around several times. Every time he wanted to start, he didn't know where to start. If he wanted to carve a spirit-gathering array, it was impossible. However, this speed array was different. One array might cause changes in the wind speed and airflow, but when two arrays were superimposed, the airflow might change. Once the changes were made, they might end up like a dog instead of a tiger, and the ship's speed would be reduced for nothing. Forget it, 60,000 kilometers it is. I'll carve it slowly in the future. After that, Han Fei patted the fishing boat heavily. Wind God boat, I will definitely make you a real wind God boat. By then, it will be the fastest fishing boat in the level 3 fishery. It will be the fastest fishing boat in the level 3 fishery. Giving up the idea of carving arrays, Han Fei popped out of Forge the Universe with a swish. When he came to the spirit gathering array, the hexagon starfish was surrounded by tens of thousands of starfish. Among them, there were even a few exotic starfish. The moment they saw Han Fei, a large number of starfish began to flee. The hexagon starfish opened its eyes and quickly put away all the shiny gold and silver gems around it. Han Fei was amused. Master Hexagon Starfish, do you think I want your junk? The hexagon starfish was surprised. Have you finished your cultivation? Well, I'm out of seclusion. Okay, stop it. The spiritual energy in your body is overflowing. Let's go. It's time to go out. The level 3 fishery was really too big. 2 months of the year had passed since the Seaborn Prairie was completed, including the delay in the beginning. Han Fei didn't know how Xia Shaochan and the others were doing now. At this moment, Han Fei's strength had returned to its peak and he urgently needed to go out to find an uninhabited sea area to deduce the true spirit fishing art. However, the hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. Can you wait a few days for me? Han Fei was speechless. What? Haven't you absorbed enough spiritual energy? Leave some for the other starfish. Besides, the news that the big red trunk is gone will spread sooner or later. At that time, there will be a lot of people here. If you wait another 2 days, you'll be captured and made into a contractual spiritual beast. The hexagon starfish's eyes gurgled. I'm going to make a breakthrough. It's only a few days away. Han Fei was shocked. You made a breakthrough again. It took you more than 300 years to reach level 40, but how many times have you made breakthroughs in the past 2 years? The hexagon starfish scoffed. That's different. The spiritual energy in your home is thin, and I also ate the red fruit, but I can only eat one, unlike your spiritual beast, which can eat several. Shoot! Reminded by the hexagon starfish, Han Fei almost forgot about Little Black and Little White. During this period of time, he had been studying the fish avatar technique and remembered that he hadn't summoned Little Black and Little White yet. Immediately, Han Fei thought of something, and with a flash between his eyebrows, 2 shadows, one black and one white, appeared. Huh! Different from their previous appearances, this time, Little Black and Little White directly drew 2 black and white rays in the water, circled a half arc in the water, and then landed next to Han Fei. Huh! Han Fei exclaimed again. He found that Little Black and Little White had changed. Not only had their bodies changed, but their temperament had also changed. First of all, the two little guys were more crystal clear at this time, and two long whiskers grew near their mouths. These long whiskers were almost as long as their body length. In addition to the long whiskers, Little White's body was emitting a holy halo all the time. It was as if its body was covered with a faint milky white brilliance. At first glance, it was full of spiritual energy. But Little Black was different from Little White. Little Black looked more ferocious, especially his eyes. Before, although Little Black was black, the sclera of his eyes were still white. Moreover, his eyeballs were also round. But at this moment, the sclera of Little Black's eyes had turned blood red, and his eyeballs had become vertical, like a cat's eyes. No, to be precise, like a wolf's eyeballs when they were vertical. Even though Han Fei was their master, he couldn't help but be taken aback at a glance. However, the two little guys still ran to Han Fei's side. Seeing their intimacy, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Oh! I was scared to death. At this moment, Han Fei looked at Little Black and Little White's data again and his pupils constricted. Spiritual beast in name, a twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish. Introduction. This is the descendant of the mysterious ancient yin-yang sky swallowing fish. The black and white fishes accompany each other. The white fish is docile, while the black fish is cruel. They are symbiotic. As long as one of them survives, the other will not die. Level 30 Equality. A mysterious stored spiritual energy greater than 100,000 points. Food omnivorous, can swallow everything. Combat skill. Supreme yin-yang wheel, consumes 5,000 points of spiritual energy per breath. Remarks. The black fish is invisible. Except for the master, only the yin-yang divine eyes born by heaven and earth can see through it. After the fusion, their combat power will be greatly increased and they are comparable to divine weapons. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. Stored 100,000 points of spiritual energy. Supreme yin-yang wheel. Fusion. Comparable to divine weapons. These words deeply shocked Han Fei and made his eyelids twitch. Holy shit! There's a body fusion technique? Han Fei was stunned. Since Master Hexagon said that he would go out in a few days, then he would. He had to study the changes of Little Black and Little White carefully. However, Han Fei immediately looked at the Hexagon Starfish and said, Master Hexagon Starfish, let me ask you a question. Have your abilities changed after you reached level 30? The Hexagon Starfish rolled his eyes and said, nothing. Han Fei said, think about it. The Hexagon Starfish pondered for a moment. It seems that before level 30, my spiritual sense was not high. I was still young at that time. Han Fei's face was black. What else? The Hexagon Starfish rolled his eyes again. Oh. I seem to have obtained a kind of inheritance from who knows where, and I can set up arrays now. Wow, Han Fei was shocked. Didn't you learn arrays from a certain array book you found when you were hunting for treasures? The Hexagon Starfish hummed. Of course not. Who would look for that thing? The book is not bright and it won't flash. It just suddenly appeared in my head. Han Fei was surprised. Weird inheritance? When the Hexagon Starfish was level 30, he obtained some kind of weird inheritance. And at this moment, Little Black and Little White seemed to have encountered the same situation and seemed to have inherited some kind of power. Supreme yin-yang wheel. No, I have to try it. With that said, Han Fei said to the Hexagon Starfish, Master Hexagon Starfish, you can advance here. Hurry up, don't waste too much time. There are still a lot of treasures waiting for us to dig. With that said, Han Fei left with Little Black and Little White. 100 kilometers away. Han Fei touched Little Black's head. Little Black. Have you gained any new abilities? Show it to me. Little Black looked at Han Fei in a daze and suddenly opened his mouth. Fuck, Han Fei took a few steps back and almost had a heart attack. He saw that the teeth in Little Black's mouth became extremely sharp. That thing was like a row of spirit artifact steel teeth. And there seemed to be a small rotating black hole in its mouth. Han Fei swallowed again. Open it again. This time, when Little Black opened his mouth again, Han Fei was still a little horrified. The teeth were sharp. Not only were they sharp, but there was also a faint red light on the teeth as if there were blood stains flowing between the teeth. Han Fei quickly said, "Close, close. Turn to your biggest size and show me." Little Black's body began to grow gradually, and it didn't stop growing until its body reached 1 meter. Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was originally about 3 meters, but now it became 1 meter, which was acceptable. As long as he didn't suddenly become 100 meters big, it would be fine. Otherwise, he would really become a sea monster. Han Fei turned his head to look at Little White. "Daughter, do you have any new abilities?" As if understanding what Han Fei meant, Little White directly opened its mouth, and then Han Fei felt that the surrounding spiritual energy began to gather. Ha! The spiritual energy gathering speed is so fast. Fuck, this speed, isn't it as fast as me setting up a small spirit gathering formation? No, it's even faster than a small spirit gathering formation. It's even faster than the superimposition of 3 small spirit gathering formations. At this time, Han Fei suddenly froze. After all, Little Black and Little White were still spirit-swallowing fish. Wasn't the most fundamental ability of spirit-swallowing fish to swallow spiritual energy? Okay. Now this ability was finally fully manifested. It was simply a mobile spiritual energy pool. Imagine, if you don't have a reserve of spiritual energy, you can still continuously absorb spiritual energy when fighting with others. If the absorption and output reached a balance, wouldn't you really have endless spiritual energy? Of course, Little White's spiritual energy absorption ability couldn't keep up with Han Fei's consumption. However, he saw a hope that could be realized. Han Fei grinned. Sure enough, Little Black and Little White were the best. After all, neither the 9-tailed mantis shrimp nor Little Gold showed such outstanding abilities at the moment as Little Black and Little White. Of course, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Gold were not bad. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp was an all-rounder who could fight, control, and dig holes. If Little Gold grew to its complete form, it could condense the power of heavenly thunder, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be able to now. Then Han Fei took out a section of the big red trunk that was tens of meters long from Forge the Universe and said, "Little Black, Little White, use the supreme yin-yang will to attack this tree." With a thought from Han Fei, Little Black and Little White immediately turned into 2 black and white mystic lights. When the 2 mystic lights intersected, a rotating Tai Chi yin-yang pattern appeared. Perhaps because the speed was too fast, Han Fei could only see the black and white lights flickering. In the next moment, the supreme yin-yang will fell on the trunk of the big red trunk. Buzz buzz buzz, Han Fei was dumbfounded when he saw that. When he used the soft saw to pull the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, it was equivalent to an ordinary saw. Little Black and Little White were simply cheating. This was completely a chainsaw. Although it consumed 5,000 points of spiritual energy every second, the speed was nearly 100 times faster than a manual saw. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, Han Fei hurriedly stopped Little Black and Little White. It was just an experiment. There was no need to cut the tree. However, looking at Little Black and Little White, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. Maybe I should go to the Seaweed City Wall. Chapter 371. Han Fei didn't choose to fuse with Little Black and Little White, mainly because he was afraid of losing control. This time, Little Black and Little White's strength could be said to have undergone earth-shattering changes. If Little Black and Little White's combat power was 5 before, then with the supreme yin-yang wheel, their combat power soared to at least 50, which was a completely different concept. During the few days of waiting for the hexagon starfish, Han Fei didn't stay idle. While practicing the incomplete monograph on 10 ways of body polishing, he was also studying the speed formation. Bim, the grand ceiling formation shook. Han Fei couldn't remember how many times it had shaken. He couldn't help tilting his head and looking at the hexagon starfish that was losing a lot of spiritual energy. It's been a day and a night. Hasn't he succeeded yet? Look at Little Black and Little White. They advanced in an instant. How can this hexagon starfish be like this? Why does it waste so much spiritual energy to advance? It's too unreliable. It doesn't look like a mysterious creature at all. Little White was frantically devouring the spiritual energy emitted by the hexagon starfish. Han Fei stopped practicing. This was the 5th time someone had found this place. Han Fei put a kitchen knife on his waist and held the blue sea wandering dragon bow in his hand. After a while, a young man and a young woman came here. When the young man saw Han Fei, he frowned slightly and then looked at the hexagon starfish with vigilance. The young man asked, "Your contractual spiritual beast?" Han Fei nodded lightly. "It's making a breakthrough. Don't disturb it." The woman next to the young man said, "There are many seals here, but only you have such a large spirit-gathering formation." "Why?" Han Fei still looked indifferent. "I set it up myself." "What do you think?" "You set it up yourself?" The young man and woman looked at each other and seemed very surprised. The young man asked, "Do you know that something big happened in the deepest part? Someone said that there seemed to be a big tree missing there." Han Fei smiled faintly. "You mean the big red trunk?" "I know. I also got the message and came from outside. Who would have thought that my contractual spiritual beast would level up halfway?" The woman said, "Since you have come here, don't you take back your contractual spiritual beast? Why don't you go inside and find out?" Seeing their unnatural expressions, Han Fei guessed that they were talking telepathically. He couldn't help but smile casually. "I don't know what's going on inside. However, I met someone on the way who said that it was already occupied by sea creatures. If you're not afraid of death, then go ahead." The armor box on the young man's back fell to the ground. "I advise you to tell me the truth. Is there a way to quickly pass through this seal? Also, what happened to the big red trunk forest?" Han Fei raised his hand, pulled the bow, and shot 3 consecutive arrows. Bang, 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 battle spirit gong. Each arrow was stronger than the previous one. With Han Fei's peak-level combat power, even a peak-level fishing master would have to block his 3 arrows for a while. The young man opened his armor, his shield behind him and his saber in front of him. Boom boom boom, the arrow shattered, and the woman disappeared without a trace. But Han Fei didn't mean to stop. He shot another arrow, and 1,600 points of spiritual energy burst out. The man's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly transmitted his voice, "Come back." At that time, Han Fei flipped his hand and slapped the seawater in the upper left corner. With a clink, a figure flew out. At this moment, Han Fei's 4th arrow hit the man's armor shield with a boom, blasting him back 5 or 6 steps, and his hands were dripping with blood. Han Fei sneered. "I'm giving you face, so just take it. If you take one more step, I'll kill you both." In fact, it was not that Han Fei didn't want to kill these people who came to pick on him, but he had tried once. For the first time, 3 people came to pick on him, and he wanted to kill them directly. However, he didn't expect that all 3 of them had flash stones. At the last moment of life and death, he directly flashed away. He had fought for so long in vain. If Han Fei guessed right, these 2 people also had flash stones, which seemed to be a must-have for entering the seaborne grassland. Since he couldn't kill them, he just needed to deter them. Anyway, when the hexagon starfish finished its advancement, he would leave. He didn't have time to waste with these people here. Sure enough, as soon as the 2 people saw Han Fei's ferocity, they easily defeated the 2 of them. Without saying a word, they retreated directly. After 2 hours, Han Fei could no longer feel the spiritual energy around him. He paused and immediately looked at the hexagon starfish. The latter opened its eyes. The hexagon starfish nodded. "It's done." Han Fei said, "Then let's go." "Since when did I become your guardian angel?" Look, I've driven away 5 waves of people for you. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. Thank you. Han Fei jumped on its back grumpily. Let's go to the seaweed wall first and see the seaweed monster. The hexagon starfish said, I can set up a concealment array to deceive it. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled. Deceive it? I'm going to meet it. After all, that damn thing still owes me 10 dry leaf worm grasses. This is good stuff. I have to ask it for it. Han Fei felt that he had been cheated miserably on the way. Since he met Yang Ruoyan, he hadn't had a smooth journey. Fortunately, although the road was tortuous, the result was gratifying. However, he couldn't beat a tough character like Yang Ruoyan, and he didn't want to have too much entanglement with her, for fear of being killed. But other people, or not necessarily people, such as the damn seaweed monster, he had to retaliate. That thing used him as a gun and even put something called soul lock on him. So if he didn't get it a red ball, it would blow him up. As soon as the hexagon starfish heard that Han Fei was going to find the seaweed monster, it slowed down and rolled its eyes. No. Starfish don't fight, and you can't beat it. Han Fei sneered. Just say that you can't beat it. But do you know what level that guy is at? It looks quite powerful. The hexagon starfish shook its tentacles. I don't know. It shouldn't be very powerful. But it is very powerful in that place. There are all seaweed there, which is very annoying to starfish. Huh. Then just like Yang Ruoyan, it is only powerful in a specific area? That is to say, as long as it goes out of the seaweed city wall, it is just a melon skin. What is a melon skin? Han Fei waved his hand and said, don't worry about it. Is there a way to lure it out? The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled left and right. I don't know. Han Fei sighed. Okay, can you stop rolling your big eyes? I'm dizzy. Master hexagon starfish, among the arrays you inherited, are there any very advanced concealment arrays? I think so. After passing through the lotus fish area and the insect fish pit, they passed other places at full speed. 100 miles away from the seaweed city wall. A big starfish was sneaking in the mud, shuttling forward. Its body surface was emitting a faint red light. However, its breath was very weak, as if it was covered by something. When approaching the seaweed city wall, the big starfish sneakily popped out of the soil with 6 big eyes. Seeing that the seaweed was not moving, it immediately drilled into the soil, as if trying to pass through the seaweed city wall from underground. Underground, the hexagon starfish seemed to be talking to itself. What if it eats me? Starfish can't fight. Then you'd better save me quickly. I've only been free for 2 years. I don't want to die yet. No, your concealment array is too lousy. I feel seaweed coming. Under the seaweed city wall, a large area of seaweed was wriggling. If Han Fei could see it from the perspective of a third party, he would find that these seaweeds were chasing the position of the hexagon starfish and seemed to be waiting for it to go a little deeper before attacking. After a while, when the hexagon starfish went nearly 100 miles deep into the seaweed city wall, suddenly, the earth shook and large tracts of seaweed poked into the mud. At that moment, the hexagon starfish immediately turned around and began to run at full speed. In the eyes of ordinary people, this was a matter of course. After all, crossing the seaweed city wall was far more than 100 miles. It might be nearly 700 or 800 miles. From a common sense point of view, of course, turning back was the only way to save his life. Therefore, the faster the hexagon starfish ran, the faster the seaweed pierced him. No matter how Master Hexagon Starfish rushed left and right and even used seals to protect himself, he was surrounded by seaweed after running less than 50 miles. The Hexagon Starfish shouted, I'm just passing by. Don't force me to fight. As a result, a leisurely voice sounded, do you have a red ball on you? Hand it over. The Hexagon Starfish shouted, I've already eaten it. The big red trunk inside is gone, and I just grabbed one. The seaweed suddenly froze. How is it possible? How could the big red trunk disappear? You lied to me. The hexagon starfish suddenly shrank and jumped out of a pile of seaweed with a swish. It's really gone. Even the roots are gone. They were taken away by sea demons. Sea demons? How is it possible? How can there be sea demons here? With that said, the seaweed completely burst out and went straight into the ground. Clumps after clumps, together with the soil, were rolled up. The hexagon starfish shouted, "Help!" The hexagon starfish was wrapped by large clumps of seaweed and dragged out of the ground. As soon as it came out of the ground, its body became big, about 50 or 60 meters long, and its 6 tentacles emitted purple light as if it was shrouded by an array. The hexagon starfish spun like a top. Immediately, countless seaweeds collapsed as if they were cut by a sharp blade. You can't escape. If the red ball is gone, I'll eat you too. The effect will be the same. The hexagon starfish was scared out of his wits, and his 6 big eyes were rolling. But in the face of the overwhelming seaweed, which was mixed with a lot of vines, the hexagon starfish finally couldn't turn anymore. Like a stuck axle, it was forcibly fixed in the seaweed. The hexagon starfish secretly said to Han Fei, "Help me. If you don't help me, I'm going to die." In a door of the hexagon starfish, Han Fei said leisurely, "Master hexagon starfish, didn't you say that you couldn't hear what I said in the door? How come you can hear me now?" The hexagon starfish was about to cry and hurriedly said, "At that time, my door was sealed. Ever since you broke the seal, I was able to communicate with the people inside the sect." Han Fei asked, "Oh? Is that so?" The hexagon starfish said anxiously, "Yes, yes." Han Fei said, "Don't worry, the seaweed monster hasn't come out yet. If it wants to eat you, it will have to show its true body, right? Otherwise, wouldn't we have done this in vain?" The hexagon starfish panicked. "If you hadn't threatened me by crushing my essence blood, how could I have come here as bait? Shameless, despicable, asshole." For a time, no matter how gentle the starfish was, he was forced to start swearing. Han Fei said, "Don't panic. Calm down. Put a seal on yourself first. Anyway, you can set up the array quickly. As long as the monster dares to show up and approach, you can throw me out. I'm sure it can't eat you. Outside." Needless to say, the hexagon starfish had already been covered with purple light. This was his special skill, the 6-gate array. This was the strongest array of the hexagon starfish, and it could even seal the effect of flash stones. Now, the tables had turned. If Han Fei didn't come out, the hexagon starfish would almost certainly die, even if it was a mysterious creature. The seaweed monster's voice sounded leisurely. "What a strong seal. Unfortunately, this is the world of seaweed, and I am the master here." The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. "Where are you? Should I spit out the red fruit? The red ball has penetrated deep into your flesh and blood. How can you spit it out? Don't worry, I will be there in a while, and I will slowly suck you dry." When Han Fei heard this news, he was speechless. So the seaweed monster is still far away from here. So, it is indeed not the kind of super creature that is so invincible that as long as there is seaweed, there will be it? Han Fei couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He was afraid of encountering a weird creature like Luo Xiaobai who could walk through spiritual plants. That thing was like Xia Xiaochan's teleportation. If you want to catch it, you can't catch it with ordinary speed at all. The wait went on for a full 2 hours. Han Fei was speechless. How fucking far is it? But the question was, since the seaweed monster was so far away, where did its voice come from? Could it be that it could transmit its voice from thousands of miles away? He waited for another moment. Finally, a dark green ball appeared. Yes, it was a ball, with a radius of less than 10 meters, and the surface was sticky like moss. On the ball, there were many circles of vines with vine leaves growing on them. This ball had no eyes, no tentacles, no mouth. It had nothing. When the green ball rolled over, it seemed to tremble for a while when it saw the hexagon starfish. Red ball, the hexagon starfish's eyes rolled. We are both exotic creatures. Why don't you let me go? Go. For so many years, I just hoped to get a red ball, but I didn't get what I wanted. Now, after eating you, I can have a red ball, transform, and awaken my talent. How can I let you go? When Han Fei listened to the hexagon starfish, he was speechless. Transform? Like Yang Ruoyan? Are you fucking kidding me? He really gave the hexagon starfish the red ball. Otherwise, the seaweed monster wouldn't necessarily embarrass the hexagon starfish. After all, if the hexagon starfish really wanted to leave, it would be very troublesome even if it could stop it. But after the hexagon starfish swallowed the red ball, it was different. With this seaweed monster's. No. With this seaweed ball's obsession with the red ball, it would never let it go. The hexagon starfish was also puzzled. Can't you transform after eating the red fruit? You won't become a sea monster. Nonsense. The green ball hit the six-gate formation with a bang and then said, "That's you. My duty is to guard the big red ball. As long as one day someone can bring back a red ball for me, I can transform and become a demon." After hearing it, Han Fei felt it was ridiculous. Those who went in have no memory. Who can bring you a red ball? Besides, all the guys who have eaten the red ball have turned into fish. How can it be your turn? Even if there are occasionally one or two people whose memories haven't disappeared, you may not be able to catch them. Take the Sun Mu trio for example. Yang Ruoyan threw them out of the big red trunk forest. Did they go out? Han Fei felt that they must have gone out. After all, although he had taken their sea-swallowing seashells and weapons and accessories, their spiritual weapons were mainly kept in their bodies. The spiritual weapons in the sea-swallowing seashells were all unowned, probably to prevent any accidents or for other purposes. But once they woke up and took out the spiritual weapons in their bodies, they would still be in the level 3 fishery. Would the top masters in the level 3 fishery really have no way to pass through the seaweed wall? Outside, the hexagon starfish reported in horror, saying that the seaweed ball was summoning countless vines, trying to strangle its six-gate formation. After about 10 minutes, the hexagon starfish said, "No, should I strengthen the formation? Help." The monster stretched out a straw from the ball. "It wants to suck my blood." Han Fei was speechless. "Do you even have blood?" However, he was immediately puzzled. It's not a mosquito. Where did the fucking straw come from? The outside world. The big green ball excitedly stabbed the hexagon starfish with the 3-meter-long, steel needle-like straw. However, just when it was about to succeed and the straw had just pierced the hexagon starfish, a figure suddenly appeared. The seaweed ball was shocked and immediately wanted to run away. But before it could move, a golden yellow SE's net had already covered them. "I told you to run." He grabbed the mouth of the net tightly and tied a dead knot. Then he looked at the ball contemptuously. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised? It's you. How is this possible? Where did you come from?" Han Fei waved his hand and dozens of blue sea-wandering dragon daggers cut off the uncontrollable vines in the blink of an eye, rescuing the hexagon starfish. After breaking free, the hexagon starfish immediately became the size of a palm and lay on Han Fei's shoulder. "You can't let it out. I was almost sucked dry by it just now." The ball was rushing left and right in the spirit-forbidden net in a panic. "What is this? Let me out. Where's my spiritual energy? Where's my spiritual energy? Please let me go. I can give you dry leaf worm grasses. I can give you 10 more. No, I can give you 100 more." Han Fei said disdainfully, "Humph. Do you think I am stupid? There are so many treasures in the world. I can cultivate with dry leaf worm grasses. It's just a few grasses. It's just a few stalks of grass, it's not worth it for me to risk letting you go. The seaweed ball panicked. What can I do to make you let me go? I don't want the red ball. I will never come out again. Han Fei sneered. What does it have to do with me whether you come out or not? Do you think you can have the red ball just because you want it? If you hadn't put a soul lock on me, maybe I could have cooperated with you. But you just had to die. Who can you blame? The seaweed ball begged, I still have spiritual energy, I have infinite spiritual energy. Duang, Han Fei kicked the ball and sneered. When I was a fisherman, I knew that no one could have infinite spiritual energy. You? Now that you're caught by me, you still have endless spiritual energy. Throw it out. Peel off your shell and let me see how much spiritual energy you have. Suddenly, the seaweed ball trembled and didn't speak. Han Fei smiled. You don't want to be peeled off. Do you want me to pull you out of this ball? Trying to act mysterious by wrapping a ball around your body. Do you really think you're a ball? Chapter 372. When he saw the ball, Han Fei didn't see any information, so he knew that there was something wrong with it. Or rather, there was indeed a creature inside, but it was definitely not the seaweed ball itself. Without giving the seaweed ball a chance to beg for mercy, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers cut the seaweed ball into hundreds of pieces as if it were a watermelon. Then, Han Fei was dumbfounded. So was the hexagon starfish. Han Fei's lips shivered. So, this thing is an octopus? A string of information popped up in his eyes. Name: a divine seaweed octopus. Introduction: an extremely rare creature in the deep-sea jungle that mutated after accidentally eating the essence of seaweed. It can freely control spiritual plants that have no consciousness. To a certain extent, it can share a life with seaweed. It can't be killed without special means in a place overgrown with seaweed. It's very weak and timid, and it usually doesn't show up. Divine grass pearl. If you eat it, there's a small chance that you can gain the ability to control seaweed. Level 39, quality, exotic, mutated, spiritual energy greater than 15,626 points. Effect, can greatly increase spiritual power and soul resistance. Collectible, divine grass pearl. Han Fei was rather speechless after seeing the information. So, was this guy really just a wolf in sheep's clothing? He was very weak, but he was so good at bragging, and he claimed that he could be given 10 dry leaf worm grasses. At this moment, the divine seaweed octopus was also dumbfounded and shrank into a ball. In fact, it was very large, even larger than the seaweed ball that it was wrapped in. However, octopuses were creatures that liked to crawl into narrow spaces. Han Fei had fished out bottles and jars more than once. Once, he fished out a large bottle with a capacity of 9 liters and a diameter of less than 5 centimeters, only to find that an octopus more than 30 centimeters thick was hidden inside. This seaweed octopus was exactly like that. Based on Han Fei's estimation, this thing was almost as big as Mr. Hexagon starfish. However, it had shrunk into a ball less than 10 meters in diameter. Don't kill me. I'll get you worm grasses. At this moment, the big octopus was still trembling and talking to Han Fei. Han Fei grinned widely. Cordyceps? I'm not in a hurry at all. I really want to get you now. Han Fei went up and punched and kicked him. I told you to put a soul lock on me. I'll let you fool me. How dare you threaten me? Who asked you to block my way? This is what you get for acting tough. This is what you get for bragging. Who asked you to grow ugly like grass? In the hexagon starfish's dull eyes, Han Fei kicked for 10 minutes. Finally, Han Fei twisted his neck. I feel much better. It feels great to hit a sandbag. The divine seaweed octopus had been reduced to a punching bag, so it didn't dare to speak or ask any questions. Anyway, Han Fei didn't use any spiritual energy when he beat him, so he just let him beat him. At this moment, the divine seaweed octopus asked weakly, "Can you let me go?" Han Fei sneered. Master Hexagon Starfish, activate the 6-gate array. Ah. What? Drive it down and throw this guy in. The divine seaweed octopus was suddenly refreshed, but the Hexagon Starfish quickly said, no. My 6-gate array doesn't seem to be able to trap it for a long time. Han Fei chuckled. Don't you have the spirit forbidden net? Are you afraid that it will run away? Hearing what Han Fei said, the Hexagon Starfish was relieved and raised its 6-gate formation. Han Fei threw the divine seaweed octopus into the 6-gate formation, and then with a thought, he put the spirit forbidden net above the 6-gate formation. As long as this damn green octopus made a move, the spirit forbidden net would cover it with a swish. Han Fei, on the other hand, sat on the head of the divine seaweed octopus with 2 blue sea wandering dragon daggers and 30 others floating next to him. Han Fei said, get me 10 dry leaf worm grasses first. Then, I'll consider whether or not to let you go. The divine seaweed octopus was stunned. Even if it had 3 hearts and 9 brains, so what? Under this kind of absolute control, even if he had 100 brains, it would be useless. The divine seaweed octopus said, no. I can't use my abilities when I'm trapped in the seal. Poochie. Before it finished, Han Fei's knife pierced through its head. Think before you speak. What did you just say? No. Fine, 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 the divine seaweed octopus was almost crying. Did he have to be so brutal? With a swish, Han Fei pulled out the knife and nodded in satisfaction. Okay, what are you waiting for? Get me the dry leaf worm grasses. The divine seaweed octopus dangled its tentacles. But there are no worm pits here. Before Han Fei said anything, the Hexagon Starfish said, that's easy. I know where there are worm pits. Human, can you get me 2 dry leaf worm grasses too? Han Fei grinned and waved his hand. Not a problem. The divine seaweed octopus almost wanted to kill the Hexagon Starfish. What the hell are you doing here? Without the giant octopus, the seaweed wall seemed to have disappeared all of a sudden. Until the Hexagon Starfish took Han Fei to the worm pit 100 kilometers away, they didn't encounter anything special. Although the seaweeds would still harass them, it was just their instinct. At this moment, the seaweeds were crawling into the worm pits crazily. Han Fei was appalled to see that tremendous seaweeds withered and eventually turned into smithereens. He felt lucky that he didn't fight those worms earlier, or he would have been dead. Han Fei couldn't have been more delighted when he got the first dry leaf worm grass. What a great stuff! If he had 10 dry leaf worm grasses, he was confident that he could push the indestructible body to a new height. The dry leaf worm grass alone had wiped out the seaweeds in the thousands of meters nearby, or even more. Of course, the seaweeds were soon replenished. 1, 2, 5. When the divine seaweed octopus attacked the 8th worm nest, the worm nests rioted. It was not just one worm nest rioting, but an earthquake. Hundreds of worm nests seemed to be rioting at the same time. Tremendous dry leaf worms surged out of the ground like locusts. The divine seaweed octopus said, not good. The worm king is coming out. Han Fei simply pulled down the spirit forbidding net and tied up the divine seaweed octopus. Then, he jumped on the Hexagon Starfish. Run, run, run. Why is there a worm king in this damn place? While running like a shooting star, the Hexagon Starfish replied, I don't know. Han Fei stabbed his dagger into the head of the big octopus. Tell me, why are the worm nests rioting? The divine seaweed octopus said in a hurry, I don't know. Maybe it's because I killed too many worms. Paw! 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 Han Fei raised his hand and slapped the octopus. That's for bragging. You've been dominating this place for so many years, and you don't even know where the Worm King is? You have a big head. When swarms of dry leaf worms surged out, Han Fei found that everything within his sight was scorched in the blink of an eye, and a lot of vines withered. Thankfully, Han Fei reacted fast enough, or he wouldn't have been able to escape if he had been a moment later. However, what Han Fei didn't know was that the worm nests were rioting not only in this place. Within a radius of thousands of miles, and even further away, there was a riot. Some people were passing through the seaweed wall after hearing the news of the seaborne prairie, only to be swallowed by the worm nests without leaving any bones behind. Some people hadn't gone deep yet, but they were scared out of their wits when they saw the worm bursts. They simply retreated the way they came and fled crazily. At this point, Han Fei stabbed dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers into the divine seaweed octopus. Do you really think I'm an idiot? You did it on purpose, didn't you? The big octopus was stunned by the daggers. It said in fear, I didn't. I really don't know. Worm bursts do happen in this place occasionally, but it has nothing to do with me. Worm bursts? How? The big octopus shivered. All the worm pits are bursting out. Hiss, Han Fei's heart was cold. What did it mean when all the worm pits were bursting out at the same time? There was no way for him to survive at all. Han Fei watched the hexagon starfish crazily crawl into the green places, but the seaweed 50 meters from the bottom of the sea had almost all been corroded. Han Fei had no idea how many worm pits were hidden underground. The hexagon starfish was fast, but it was impossible to get rid of it. It was because the worm pits were bursting out in more than one place. Also, weirdly enough, the worms were chasing him for some reason. Looking at the divine seaweed octopus that had curled up, Han Fei wondered, is it really behind this? Han Fei secretly released his spiritual senses and finally found something wrong. The blue sea wandering dragon daggers sank into the big octopus's body and stirred. As it turned out, the divine seaweed octopus was secreting a sticky liquid when it was running. The sticky liquid was very small. There was only one drop of it dozens of meters in diameter. If Han Fei hadn't been fooled by Yang Ruoyan, he wouldn't have guessed it at all. However, he observed it 3 times, and every time the liquid dropped, the worm nests would riot. Han Fei said coldly, surrender, or die. Make your choice. Surrender, surrender. Don't kill me. I can be your contractual spiritual beast. Stop messing around. Han Fei's lips curled. Since you've surrendered, don't resist mentally. Come back. Chapter 373. Seeing that the divine seaweed octopus was gone, the hexagon starfish was so shocked that its eyes widened. Where's the octopus? Where did it go? Do you have a space that can hold living creatures? Han Fei rolled his eyes at it. It's already dead. I threw it into my sea-swallowing seashell. Wait. It's not dead. Hiu. Hiu. Dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers disappeared into Han Fei's body, and he said fiercely, I said it's dead, so it's dead. The hexagon starfish shuddered in fear. It was scared of Han Fei now. It felt that this human was a monster. A man who could even share the spoils of a sea demon. A man who came back to kill the enemy after being threatened once and threatened to crush its essence blood. This man was too ferocious. After the divine seaweed octopus was taken care of, the dry leaf worms stopped following them. Han Fei immediately grinned. You're really a drama queen. Are you going to get yourself killed by playing with me? Outside the seaweed city wall. The running character switched over. Fearing that it would be too conspicuous, the hexagon starfish shrunk to the size of a palm and lay on Han Fei's shoulder. Han Fei, on the other hand, swam all the way. There was nothing worth exploring in this place. Perhaps, there were more secrets hidden in a corner of the seaborne prairie. However, it didn't matter to Han Fei. The seaborne prairie must have been overturned recently. He had run into several groups of people in a place that should have been uninhabited. Very soon, Han Fei saw 3 people standing in his way. One was a woman carrying a broadsword that was taller than a person, and the other 2 were an armorist and a hunter. The woman blocked him with her broadsword. Stop. Han Fei asked, Guys, are you here to rob me? Han Fei's perception range was only 300 meters, so he couldn't avoid running into other people or other creatures. This was already the third wave of people before them. Of the first two groups, one was already dead, and the other ran away. The woman's face was cold. You escaped from inside? Han Fei nodded slightly. Yes. What happened inside? Han Fei grinned. You'll know if you go and take a look. Brat, you'll answer whatever I ask you. Otherwise, killing an intermediate dangling fisher like you would be a piece of cake for us. Before the woman could speak, the armorist next to her had already spoken. This armorist was tall and strong, with a long beard, which made him look rather ferocious. Han Fei glanced at him casually. You should be more informed outside than inside, right? The woman stared at Han Fei coldly. After a while, she said, I heard that the big red trunk in the deepest part has disappeared. Is this true? Han Fei shrugged. Why do you all think I should know about the big red trunk? I don't know what happened to Big Red. However, it's true that an insect plague broke out in the Seaweed City wall. The expressions of the three people on the other side changed. Insect plague? The hunter immediately denied, that's impossible. The insect disaster hasn't happened in years. How could it be? Han Fei said lazily, so, you'll know what's going on after you take a look. How annoying. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. However, just when Han Fei was about to move, the woman raised her knife. Since you came out from inside, I naturally believe you. I won't ask about the things inside anymore. But Han Fei, don't you think you're too arrogant to show up now? This time, it was Han Fei's turn to change his expression. How do you know my name? In the blink of an eye, the three people fused with their spiritual beasts, the hunter disappeared without a trace, and the armor box was spewing out weapons. Han Fei stretched out his hand, and a big seal appeared in his hand. He aimed at the seal on the upper right side and in an instant, the seawater rolled back. Before the hunter dodged, a blue sea wandering dragon dagger appeared next to him. When he tried to dodge, Han Fei had already stabbed him in the heart. On the other side, the woman and the armorist hadn't taken action yet. Seeing this scene, their expressions changed greatly. The armorist instantly withdrew his weapon and exclaimed, how can he be so strong? Didn't the wanted list say that he was only an intermediate dangling fisher? The woman also immediately withdrew her weapon. He was too strong. This was completely beyond their expectations. Among the three of them, she was the only one who was an advanced dangling fisher, and the other two were both intermediate dangling fishers. One of them was killed in the first round. How could they continue to fight? Han Fei shouted, hey, don't you think it's too late to run now? Han Fei's figure flashed, and he was about to take action, when he suddenly found that the two of them swooshed at the same time. They disappeared. Han Fei, damn flash stones. How can there be such damn things? Han Fei was rather speechless. Everybody who escaped from his hands did so with flash stones. That thing could crush a person with a pinch, and there was no way to chase them. In Han Fei's impression, the price of things like flash stones was not cheap at all. When he got a flash stone from a treasure-hunting fish, someone offered 4,000 mid-quality pearls for it. But now, why did everyone he met have one? Or did these people only have one to save their lives? Han Fei took the hunter's sea-swallowing seashell and took a look. There was only a pair of low-quality spiritual weapons. Show. There was not even a spiritual fruit left. He couldn't help but throw them into Forge the Universe in disgust. Han Fei frowned. Why did they know him? There seemed to be more and more people coming to the Seaborn Prairie. He had already encountered 3 waves on his way here. Based on this ratio, the Seaborn Prairie might have been surrounded. On his way out of the Seaborn Prairie, he was more or less safe. Because it was different from the way he came, some strange marine creatures appeared and slightly disrupted his pace, but it didn't matter. On his way, Han Fei ran into another two groups of ambushes, but Han Fei only killed one of them, and the rest all crushed their flash stones and ran away. The hexagon starfish said, "It seems that there are more and more human beings." Han Fei nodded. "No, there are indeed more and more." After leaving the sea-born prairie, Han Fei immediately floated to the surface of the sea and took out the wind god boat. When the red and white wind god boat appeared on the surface of the sea, it was even cooler than the most glamorous yacht. In particular, there were two protruding tail fins, just like the tail lights of a car. As soon as Han Fei controlled the wind god boat swooshed out. In the blink of an eye, it had run dozens of kilometers. Shoot, it's so fast, it was the same feeling as when an airplane took off and accelerated. Han Fei felt that he had to gasp for breath. The hexagon starfish said, "That's weird. This thing flies faster than me." Han Fei said in disdain, "What do you think? Except for the fact that it can't enter the sea, the speed of this boat is the fastest in the fishery." The hexagon starfish asked, "Then are we going to find the treasure with it?" "Of course. Didn't Yang Ruoyan give us a map? Whether it's fake or not, it's always good to take a look." "What if it's real? It's only 10,000 kilometers away from here. We should be there in 2 hours." The hexagon starfish asked, "Didn't you say that it was fake?" Han Fei said, "That's right. What if the woman gave me a real map?" Because Han Fei was very confident in the wind god boat, this was the craziest and most high-profile trip he had ever taken. Swish. Swish. Swish, wherever the wind god boat passed, the wind blew and waves surged, raising waves more than 50 meters high. The waves that were stirred up on both sides spread out layer by layer, and the furthest one could reach nearly a kilometer. Even Han Fei's previous advanced fishing boat would take him 6 hours to cross the distance of 10,000 kilometers. Ordinary fishing boats could only see a red shadow passing by in front of the wind god boat. So, from time to time, fishing boats exclaimed, "It's a ghost speed divine boat. Son of a bitch, which young master from the Thousand-Star City is traveling this time? Oh my god. I actually saw a ghost speed divine boat. Ha! A red ghost speed divine boat is rare. Ha! Why haven't I heard of a red ghost speed divine boat?" What's more, many fishing boats began to follow the ghost speed divine boat. Wherever a ghost speed divine boat appeared, something big was going to happen. Recently, the sea grassland was the most lively place. Rumor had it that the big red trunk was gone, attracting countless people to hunt for treasures. Of course, Han Fei couldn't hear these exclamations at all. He was driving the boat too excitedly. Han Fei was wondering how many little girls would want to experience it if it were in the past. Of course, ordinary people couldn't sit on it. A boat that could reach 5,000 kilometers per hour shouldn't appear at all. But if it did, how could it withstand this speed without a physique? More than 3 hours later, Han Fei finally found a seal covered by sea anemones in a small trench at the bottom of the sea. Han Fei stood by the sea anemones and looked at it for a long time before he asked, "Master Hexagon Starfish, do you think this secret realm has been explored? Go in and you'll know." After thinking for a long time, Han Fei still stepped in. After a moment, the Hexagon Starfish rolled its big eyes. "Sure enough, you've been tricked again." Chapter 374. Han Fei was very calm. Holding the water-dividing seal, he clapped at a dilapidated house in the secret realm. He didn't walk out until the house collapsed with a smile. The Hexagon Starfish muttered, "Human beings are really bad. Shut up." At this moment, Han Fei was even more certain that Yang Ruoyan was just a bluffer. She looked serious, but when she started to deceive people, she was the best bluffer in the world of bluffing. This godforsaken place was a wasteland. There was a dilapidated house inside, half broken, and rocks were everywhere inside and outside. Not to mention treasures, there wasn't even seaweed. Even crabs that could drill in anywhere were nowhere to be seen. Han Fei was a little surprised. What did she mean? Did she build this secret realm just to deceive people? Wasn't the price of deceiving people too high? The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. Maybe she's already been here. Han Fei nodded heavily. Most likely. Master Hexagon Starfish, let me tell you, next time a woman offers to cooperate with you, you must not trust her. How can I tell men from women? Han Fei paused. Forget it. Han Fei thought it was not reliable to rely on others to provide information about dangerous places. Now that he had the wind god boat, he had to find a place to cultivate and deduce the technique first. Just as Han Fei swam to the surface of the sea, 5 people swam towards him. Han Fei immediately wanted to bypass them, but the distance between them was too close. Before Han Fei bypassed them, he had already bumped into them. Han Fei wondered why this kind of thing always happened to him. The 5 people were also stunned. One of them quickly took out a booklet, flipped through it, and then asked Han Fei via voice transmission, "Are you Han Fei?" Han Fei. Han Fei was puzzled. You know me again. Who are you? The 5 people on the opposite side were overjoyed. Kill. Han Fei. Faced with the unexpected encounter, Han Fei was still dumbfounded. However, the situation at that time didn't allow him to think too much. The 5 people on the opposite side came very quickly. This was a perfect combination with all 5 professions. Among them, the manipulator and the spirit gatherer were both female, advanced dangling fishers and junior dangling fishers respectively. Among the other 3, the soul warrior was an advanced dangling fisher, and the other 2 were intermediate dangling fishers. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Sun Mu and the other 2 were already safe and had begun to cast a net on a large scale. Were they coming for him? The female manipulator looked a bit like Su Yabai, who was also a sea spider spiritual beast. White spider webs weaved through the seawater and soon covered a large area. The soul warrior's spiritual beast was actually a mess-swallowing worm, and he also used dual knives and attacked extremely fast. He instantly created a stream of water in the seawater and appeared in front of Han Fei. Ding ding ding, at this time, how could Han Fei show weakness? Attached to the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, he slashed at the enemy with 2 knives. At the same time, the 9-star chain burst forth, piercing into the void 100 meters away. The opponent's hunter's figure flashed quickly. The man hurriedly said to the others via voice transmission, his perception range is more than 100 meters. Hearing this, all 5 of them were shocked. Although theoretically, a dangling fisher should have a perception range of 100 meters, it still required luck. Ordinary people couldn't even perceive 50 meters, let alone 100 meters. Clatter, 30 knives appeared next to Han Fei at the same time, and the soul warrior who was facing Han Fei immediately changed his expression. How is it possible to control 30 knives at the same time? The man immediately retreated and said telepathically, "Armories." However, the blue sea wandering dragon daggers followed him like a shadow and stuck close to the soul warrior. In the blink of an eye, dozens of wounds were left on his spiritual energy protective cover. When the enemy armorist's torrent of knives and swords swept at him, Han Fei ignored them and still chased after the soul warrior. Tell me, how do you know me? The opponent's manipulator tried to pull the soul warrior away with spider silk and bind Han Fei with spider webs. However, the daggers on Han Fei's side rolled and all the spider webs were cut. Bam! The water-dividing seal turned into a seal tens of meters large and slapped at the soul warrior. The opponent tried to block it with his double knives, but with a crack, the knives were broken and he collapsed. The battle's soul master spat out a mouthful of blood, and both of his arms were fractured. Behind him, the hunter had just got rid of the 9-star chain at a weird speed. 2 daggers. The daggers cut at the back of Han Fei's neck, but with a flash of cold light, a burst of knife chi leaped out dozens of meters in an instant. The hunter was directly cut into two halves. Retreat, retreat, retreat! 6 giant turtle shields appeared in front of the armorist and he sent a telepathic message to everyone in horror. However, the big seal slapped again. Boom, 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 4 of the 6 turtle shields were directly broken, and the armorist was directly slapped hundreds of meters away. The remaining spirit gatherer and the manipulator looked horrified and were about to run away. They were too scared. They didn't even use their contractual spiritual beasts. The hunter was beheaded and the soul warrior was completely suppressed, unable to fight back. Even the armorist with the strongest defense was no match for Han Fei. What kind of monster is this? Run! Master Hexagon Starfish, set up the formation. 6 rays of purple light shot up into the sky. Under the 6 gates formation, the 2 women directly collided with it. In the next moment, they were bound by the 9-star chain, unable to move. From start to finish, the battle lasted less than 10 breaths of time. Was Han Fei strong? Of course he was. However, the people he met before were all peak-level dangling fishers. That thing was not on the same level as intermediate or advanced dangling fishers at all. An advanced dangling fisher had to polish himself for a long time before he could reach the peak. There were also good and bad people among those who were at the peak. Ordinary people did not have resources, so naturally, there was a huge gap in this realm. When facing Sun Mu and the others, Han Fei didn't even think about it and just ran away. However, in the face of these so-called perfect combinations, Han Fei's eyes were wide open. His explosive power and rich combat skills were reflected. Was the saber manipulation art not powerful enough? Of course not, it was just that he couldn't hit a peak-level dangling fisher at all. As for the soul warrior in front of him, he was already covered with cuts and bruises. Han Fei stabbed each of the 4 people, cut their hearts, and then broke their arms. And at this moment, the manipulator tried to escape with a flash stone, but as a result, he directly hit the 6 gates formation. Ha! Han Fei chuckled. These people like to hit the formation with flash stones. How desperate they must be. The manipulator was also stunned, feeling cold all over. At this moment, in her eyes, Han Fei was like a demon. Only the children of the high and mighty families in the 1,000-star city could have this kind of terrifying ability, right? After a moment. On the fishing boat. Han Fei directly covered these 4 people with the spirit forbidden net. Suddenly, these people's hearts sank. They had heard of the spirit forbidden net but had never seen it. Who knew that this time not only did they see it, but also a more advanced one? Han Fei sat on a long chair in the cabin, tilted his head, looked at these people, and said, "Answer what I ask. First, how do you know I am Han Fei?" The soul warrior smiled bitterly. "You have been listed on the level 3 fisheries wanted list. The reward is 100 gold-colored spiritual fruits, 100 caddies of spiritual spring, a high-quality spiritual weapon, a demon-level combat skill." Han Fei immediately took a breath. Am I so valuable? Is it the booklet you read before? The soul warrior nodded and took out his sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei took it. There was nothing good in the sea-swallowing seashell, so he didn't bother to search it. Taking out the booklet, Han Fei immediately flipped through it. The first page. First on the wanted list. Name, Mo Qianchang. Gender, male. Profession, armorist. Spiritual beast, golden arowana. Contractual spiritual beasts, mess swallowing worm, illusion jellyfish. Unknown specialties, good at weird knife formation, shadow stabbing sword. Stream reward, 5 million mid-quality pearls. Other rewards, 1,000 caddies of spiritual spring, 2 demon-level high-quality cultivation techniques, 5 high-quality spiritual weapons, and 1,000 spiritual fruits. Comments, extremely dangerous. He once strangled 62 peak-level dangling fishers in the 10,000 Smokes Valley. He once destroyed 3 secret realms and killed more than 100 people. Remarks, this person is extremely vicious. No one who has seen his face has survived. There were also 2 portraits of Mo Qianshang attached to the booklet, one with a fish skin mask and the other with the lower half of his face. Han Fei was speechless. The price was much higher than his. However, when Han Fei saw the comments, he couldn't help but be a little touched. This guy is a bit strong. How strong is this armorist who killed 62 peak-level dangling fishers alone? As he browsed through the booklet one by one, he turned to page 32, and a very familiar name appeared in his vision. 32nd on the wanted list. Name, Xia Xiaochuan. Gender, female. Profession, hunter. Spiritual beast, shadow shrimp, unknown giant fish. Contractual spiritual beast, red flame. Tricky lobster. Special features, shadow kill technique, stealth kill technique, supreme stab, suspected, teleportation. Reward, 3 million mid-quality pearls. Other rewards, 300 caddies of spiritual spring, 1 demon-level high-quality cultivation technique, 1 high-quality spiritual weapon, and 300 spiritual fruits. Comments, extremely dangerous. He once killed 2 people in a row in the Cave of Death, including 16 peak-level dangling fishers. No one below the advanced dangling fishers can defeat him. He is extremely fast and good at teleportation. He has a spiritual beast with a second talent and his strength is unfathomable. Remarks, this woman doesn't seem to be in a stable relationship. When she goes berserk, her strength is comparable to the top 10 on the wanted list. The last place she appeared was about 50,000 kilometers away from the undersea city. In the end, there was a portrait of Xia Xiaochuan. She was expressionless, but she was also beautiful and cute. Gulp, Han Fei swallowed. Did Xia Xiaochuan have an attack? 22. Chapter 375. Han Fei flipped through the pamphlet again and again, and his good mood disappeared. Xia Xiaochuan had an attack. This was a serious matter. Han Fei couldn't imagine what Xia Xiaochuan would do after her attack. In this level 3 fishery, it was not like in the Thug Academy. At home, even if she had an attack, Han Fei wouldn't really hurt her. But in the outside world, especially in a place like the level 3 fishery, no one would show mercy to her. Han Fei couldn't help but look at those people. Is there a time limit for all the people recorded in this book? How often will it be updated? The Soul Warrior gritted his teeth. Usually, it's changed every 7 days. Because someone on the dragon boat wants them to die, the time must be relatively accurate. Otherwise, it will be easy for them to escape. Han Fei frowned. When was this pamphlet released? The day before yesterday. The day before yesterday. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. If it was the day before yesterday, didn't it mean that Xia Xiaochuan might not have reached the undersea city yet? According to Han Fei's understanding of Xia Xiaochuan, if she hadn't had an attack, it was impossible for her not to go to a well-known place like the undersea city. However, when he looked at the location of the undersea city, he found that it was 150,000 kilometers away from him. Even if he moved at full speed, it would take him 2.5 days. Han Fei frowned. It might not be good for him to catch up with her in a hurry. Xia Xiaochuan's ability to escape was extremely strong, even better than his own. Now it was urgent for him to improve his strength, and at the same time, he was being hunted. If he went there, he might attract more people. At that time, the pursuers would not be ordinary dangling fishers, but peak-level dangling fishers. Han Fei continued to turn to the 59th page before he turned to himself. Number 59 on the wanted list. Name, Han Fei. Gender, male. Profession, soul warrior, spirit gatherer. Spiritual beast, spirit swallowing fish. Contractual spiritual beasts, mantis shrimp, unknown species, good at using 9 chains, unknown, extremely fast, with 2 wings, suspected to be a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Special features, million knife art, unknown seal bounty, 500,000 mid-quality pearls. Other rewards, 300 caddies of spiritual spring, a demon-level high-quality cultivation method, a high-quality spiritual weapon, and 300 spiritual fruits. Comments, dangerous, cunning, good at arrays. He had killed more than 20 dangling fishers in the seaborne prairie. Note, this man is extremely cunning. Kill him as soon as you see him. He is suspected to be related to the changes in the seaborne prairie. Bang! Han Fei slammed the chair, startling the 4 people in the spirit forbidden net. Han Fei's face suddenly became extremely awful. What the hell? I'm already ranked 59th. Was the fish blind? Snipe? 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 I'm being hunted. What did he mean by killing no less than 20 dangling fishers? What did it mean to be ruthless? It was obvious that someone was slandering him. Among them, he deliberately did not mention that those who died in his hands were all peak-level dangling fishers, and he described himself as being hunted instead of being hunted. The person who wrote this book had evil intentions. Han Fei looked at them coldly and asked, "Who wrote this booklet?" The spirit gatherer quickly said, "We don't know. It's just that it's sold on the dragon boat. We just need to buy it." Han Fei recalled that he didn't encounter such a thing before. Maybe he was busy on the dragon boat. He was either busy drawing prizes or refining weapons and didn't really read them one by one. So, he didn't find this booklet earlier. Han Fei continued to read patiently. He didn't see Luo Xiaobai, Lu Renquang, and Zhang Xuanyu until the 100th page. Seeing that the 3 of them were not on the list, Han Fei couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Once he was on this booklet, he would be the focus of the level 3 fishery and receive the attention of countless people. But what Han Fei didn't know was that somewhere, in a corner, Zhang Xuanyu was also holding the latest wanted list. When he saw that both Xia Shaochan and Han Fei were on the list, he immediately wailed, "These 2 bastards, they're doing something earth-shattering again. No, I can't lose to them." Han Fei put away the booklet. He couldn't get a new booklet in time since he couldn't get on the dragon boat, so he had to keep it safe. Han Fei squinted at them. "Tell me, what's the most sensational thing you've heard recently?" The manipulator said, "So far, the most sensational thing is that the big red trunk in the seaborne prairie is gone." "That's bullshit. Aren't the 10,000 Smoke Valley and the Cave of Death big?" The manipulator shook his head. "Of course not as big as the seaborne prairie. The big red trunk is the most mysterious central area of the seaborne prairie. Nobody knows the secrets there. Now that the big red trunk is gone, there are rumors that sea demons have appeared in the seaborne prairie, and there seems to be a riot there. 2 dragon boats have come here recently." Han Fei's eyes constricted. 2 dragon boats have come. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. No wonder he met so many people recently. It turned out that 2 dragon boats had come. It seemed that he couldn't stay in this place anymore. Han Fei asked again, "How much is this booklet?" "Huh?" The few of them were stunned. "Could it be that you still have to give us money?" The soul warrior said, 100 mid-quality pearls. Han Fei's face immediately darkened. So cheap. Didn't it mean that anyone could afford it? Then how many people knew him and Xia Shaochan at this moment? Pondering for a long time, Han Fei asked in confusion, why did so many people come despite the riot in the seaborne prairie? At this moment, the armorist said, because too many people want to take the opportunity to look for opportunities. In fact, most people's purpose is not the seaborne prairie itself, but to kill people for their treasures. Han Fei chuckled. Kill people for their treasures? Who's going to kill who? Do they want to die? The armorist shook his head. Whenever something big happens, the nearest dragon boats will come to explore. The people who kill people for their treasures are not from the dragon boats. Han Fei sneered. If they're not from the dragon boats, are they all from the sea? However, to Han Fei's surprise, the armorist nodded and said straightforwardly, because so many people have come from the dragon boats, the real ghost boats of the level 3 fishery may come too. No. Wait a moment. Han Fei thought for a moment and said, the ghost boats are too small. There are only a few people on them. Do they dare to hunt the people who get off the dragon boats in large batches? The armorist shook his head. It's not a regular ghost boat, but a real ghost boat, the only one in the entire level 3 fishery. Han Fei was immediately interested. Go on, go on. But the armorist looked at Han Fei. Can you let them go first? As long as you let them go, I will tell you everything. Han Fei sneered. Are you negotiating with me? Why don't you take a look at your current situation? The armorist gnashed his teeth. We are no match for you at all. You can kill us at any time. However, it doesn't make sense to kill us. You seem to despise our sea-swallowing seashells. In that case, what you want to know must be information. And I know the most comprehensive information here. Han Fei narrowed his eyes and considered for a moment. Then he pointed at the spirit gatherer and the soul warrior and said, You too, go. However, the spirit gatherer grabbed the armorist's arm tightly and seemed to be unwilling to go. The armorist said angrily, Go. The soul warrior took a deep look at his companion beside him, then pulled up the female spirit gatherer, walked out of the hole opened by Han Fei, and then jumped into the water. Han Fei dared to let them go because one was weak and the other was seriously injured, so he was not afraid that they would bring trouble to him. As the armorist said, he was not interested in these people's lives or their sea-swallowing seashells, but he was very interested in the information. Han Fei said with a smile, Now, can you tell me? The armorist glanced at the manipulator next to him. Han Fei said coldly, Don't push your luck. If you can tell me clearly and comprehensively, I will consider letting her go. But if I find that you have misled me in the slightest, I will kill her immediately. This was not the time to be merciful to women. Those who dared to take the risk had long been prepared to die. In Yang Ruoyan's words, You kill me, I kill you. This seemed to be the most fundamental purpose of selecting elites in the level 3 fishery. The armorist sighed. Everyone knows that there are dragon boats and ghost ships in the level 3 fishery. In fact, there is a basis for the ghost ships we usually talk about. In the level 3 fishery, there is a huge ship that walks on the bottom of the sea. Han Fei interrupted, No. Wait a minute. You mean a ship that walks on the bottom of the sea? The armorist nodded. Yes. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Fuck, a submarine. Chapter 376. Han Fei was shocked that there was a giant ship walking on the bottom of the sea here. His teacher didn't mention it when he came here. The armorist looked at Han Fei. That's the dark world of the level 3 fishery. The outside world calls that ship the evil shield. Because no matter who you are and what you have done, no one will care about you on that ship. Of course, that's the saying on the dragon boat. Outside, we all call it the specter ship, because no one knows where it will appear. But as long as something big happens, it will always be there. Han Fei didn't quite believe it. It was said that the dragon boat was the safest place in the level 3 fishery. He had just gone there, and someone had already killed him. Han Fei sneered. So, isn't the specter the safest place in the level 3 fishery? However, the armorist and the manipulator nodded at the same time. Han Fei smiled. Do you think I'm stupid? If it were so safe, why would it run into the water? The armorist shook his head. Because this ship is full of people of all walks of life. They don't know each other and don't interfere with each other. I've never heard of any malicious murder on the ship. However, it's only on the ship. There were also many people who were openly tailed the moment they left the ship and were killed on the spot. Han Fei was speechless. What's the difference between that and killing people on the ship? Of course there is. The armorist said, You just need to prepare a few more flash stones. Han Fei had a headache. He didn't know where the flash stones were dug out from. With them, they could often save their lives. In this way, the stronger they were, the less likely they would die. Han Fei asked, Do you know where flash stones are dug out? Huh? This time, it was the armorist's turn to be stunned, but the manipulator said straightforwardly, "Flash stones can be found in many places. A large number of flash stones are occasionally found in the Valley of 10,000 Smokes, and there are also some in the undersea mines. But the undersea mines are usually controlled by some strong masters, and there are dragon boats there all the time. Some are obtained from the treasure-hunting fish, but the chance is too small. The flash stones are mainly controlled by the dragon boats. Every once in a while, some will be released." Han Fei thought for a moment. "Forget it. I have money anyway. I can just buy this kind of thing." Thinking about that, Han Fei asked, "So, the specter is already here?" The armorist shook his head. "I don't know, but 2 dragon boats have come here. There's no reason why the specter won't come. However, it shouldn't appear so soon. It would not show up until the battle in the Seaborn Prairie was over. At that time, those who are really familiar with the level 3 fishery often choose the specter instead of the dragon boat." "Why?" The armorist said, "If enough people die, a lot of sea-swallowing seashells and related trophies will appear. They were also sold on the dragon boats, but if they were sold to the shops on the dragon boats, it would be easy for others to trace them. Unless you go to the ghost market. But the ghost market on the dragon boat is an extremely dangerous place. It's okay to go there. But if you sell it, forgive me for being blunt, but if you have something really good, you won't even know how you die in the future." Han Fei was silent for a moment. Didn't he cause the subsequent series of consequences because he sold magic weapons on the dragon boat? However, Han Fei asked in confusion, "How do you know all this?" The armorist said frankly, "Because I am an armorist, and I have a great demand for weapons. If you are not an armorist, of course you don't know. But no armorist who has stayed in the level 3 fishery for more than a year will go to the ghost market on the dragon boat. They will even be very careful when buying." "Damn it," Han Fei spat. This armorist really had a lot of secrets. Han Fei's face turned cold. "What are the conditions to go to the specter?" The armorist said, "There is no condition to board the ship. You can board at any place, and no one will chase you and ask for any fees. After boarding, you will see black robes and masks everywhere. Just put them on." Han Fei asked in surprise, "I can go there at any time?" The armorist shook his head. "Of course not. After putting on the black robes and masks, you must enter the cabin within half an hour, or you will trigger the defense of the specter. At that time, anyone can appear, kill you, and take away your sea-swallowing seashells." Han Fei smiled. "Go on." The armorist continued innocently, "There are many doors in the cabins. Even if you go in, you will have to pay a fee. 1,000 mid-quality pearls can be used for 24 hours. There are no so-called rooms or lounges inside, but all the cabins are trading areas. On the specter, there is nothing that you can't trade. If you trade with the specter, the price will be reduced by 50%. If you trade with others, you must pay 20% of the price of the traded goods to the specter. Otherwise, you may be expelled or killed on the spot." While the armorist was talking, Han Fei stared into his eyes, only to see that the armorist didn't dodge his eyes at all. Han Fei nodded slightly. "How do you know when the specter appears?" Han Fei was tempted. If it was really as the armorist described, the specter would be a good place to go. He had a lot of sea-swallowing seashells, and if he sold them all for spiritual fruits, it would definitely be a considerable number. Ghost Horn. When the specter appears, evil laughter will erupt within 10,000 kilometers. We call it the Ghost Horn. Han Fei was speechless. Isn't the specter afraid of running into a dragon boat? Of course not. 30 years ago, an unparalleled war broke out between the specter and the dragon boats. At that time, the specter ship fought against 5 dragon ships on its own and even sank one of the dragon ships. As he spoke, the armorist's eyes were full of yearning. It is said that in that war, countless black-robed men spontaneously took action and fought against the people on the dragon boats. The seawater was dyed red, and corpses were everywhere. There was also a strong master of the spectre who fought against 5 hanging fishers alone and killed 4 of them. Since then, no dragon boat dared to attack the spectre at will. Since then, the name of the evil shield has become famous in the level 3 fishery. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. 1 ship fought against 5 ships. 1 man fought against 5 experts of the same level. Suddenly, Han Fei squinted and said, "Wait, isn't there a hidden fisher in the level 3 fishery?" The armorist smiled noncommittally. It was because of that war that the hidden fisher came to the level 3 fishery. That hidden fisher once launched another war against the spectre. However, he was killed on the spot by the owner of the spectre. Wow, Han Fei was stunned. That's a bit fucking strong. The hidden fisher was killed on the spot. The big shot behind the spectre seemed to be ridiculously strong. Han Fei asked, "Did no one care about it after that?" The armorist shook his head. "I don't know. Anyway, since that time, there has been no war against the spectre. Because the spectre never took the initiative to fight, over time, even if the dragon boats encountered it, they would ignore it." Han Fei was shocked. A ship had been forcibly described into a legend. It seemed to be the real hero in the level 3 fishery. Han Fei closed the spirit forbidden net and pointed to the manipulator. "Hand over your sea-swallowing seashells and I'll let you go." Both of them were taken aback. Were they going to be let go? Was Han Fei really just asking them for some basic information about the level 3 fishery? Han Fei sneered. "It's boring to kill you. Let's go." The manipulator threw away his sea-swallowing seashells. Compared with his life, his sea-swallowing seashells were nothing. Watching the 2 of them leave, Han Fei smiled. "Spread the news. Tell others that I am here." Han Fei deliberately let them go. First, since this place was already chaotic enough, he wanted to make it more chaotic. The evaluation of him on the wanted list was too simple, and many people might mistakenly think that he was weak. He felt that since he was on the wanted list, he might as well take this title. Second, didn't they put him on the wanted list? He had enough of being hunted all the time. Then he might as well make everyone tremble with fear this time. To this end, Han Fei steered the wind god boat to the periphery for another 5,000 kilometers in a high-profile manner. Then, instead of running away, he put away the wind god boat and sat cross-legged in the sea. Han Fei said, "Master Hexagon Starfish, for the next period of time, you'd better hide at the bottom of the sea. If necessary, get me out of this place." "Huh? Save you? You'll understand when the time comes." Han Fei took out a dry leaf worm grass, bit it in half, and swallowed it. Indestructible body, refine. Chapter 377. The dry leaf worm grass contained enormous energy. Han Fei didn't know what the word enormous meant. However, he had seen how much seaweed the divine seaweed octopus had consumed for a dry leaf worm grass. At this moment, when the dry leaf worm grass entered his body, surging torrents of energy burst out in his body. Han Fei's body immediately became much fatter. However, Han Fei took out another dry leaf worm grass and swallowed it again. The hexagon starfish was shocked. "Are you crazy? You'll explode if you eat any more." Han Fei grinned. "Since we're going to play, let's play big. Hide." Then, Han Fei took out a third dry leaf worm grass and swallowed it again. After swallowing it 3 times, Han Fei's skin cracked like a porcelain doll, making cracking sounds. However, the sound was not only made by his skin, but also by his flesh and bones. Break. Han Fei had always felt that his indestructible body was tough, but it was not as powerful as the venerable level combat techniques. He had always felt that it was still lacking. Because of that, Han Fei had lost the advantage of his physique when he was a fisher and a great fishing master. Back then, old Jiang said that he became fat because of a drop of candle dragon blood, which contained enormous energy. How painful was it when Han Fei absorbed the energy of the candle dragon blood? He was burned by that energy for 3 days and 3 nights. Later, he tried to cultivate, but he didn't get to the bottom of it. He wanted to take the opportunity to completely break the barrier. Han Fei's body was already dripping with blood after only 1 minute. Because of this, a lot of fish came. However, Little Black, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, and Little Gold protected him and tore the fish into pieces. The fish in the level 3 fishery were very shrewd. After the first test, they fled without a trace. A moment later, Han Fei's skin was burnt up, and his blood was evaporating and drying. But because of the support of enough spiritual energy, new flesh and skin were growing quickly. After being tortured again and again, Han Fei's body had become a source of spiritual energy. Spiritual energy flowed on the surface of his body, and energy exploded inside. 2 hours passed. Han Fei's body, which had been bloated by the energy, began to shrink quickly. 6 hours later. A fishing boat appeared with 3 people on it. They were shocked to see Han Fei's appearance. But while he was shocked, he was also pleasantly surprised. Taking advantage of others when they were perilous was a common thing in the level 3 fishery. At this moment, Han Fei was in the middle of a breakthrough and couldn't move. It was a good time for them to attack. Someone said, "Is that person Han Fei?" "That's right, it's him. This kid is simply courting death. He actually dares to make a breakthrough on the surface of the sea without the slightest fear. Kill." However, before the 3 of them were within 100 meters of Han Fei, 9 chains danced in the air and instantly caught one of them. At the same time, a golden red shadow broke out of the water. Goldie's wings swept out a terrifying blade light and directly cut one of them in half. As for the person who was bound by the 9-star chain, his neck was suddenly bitten open, and blood spurted out. The remaining soul warrior was scared out of his wits. He immediately activated his flash stone and fled. 8 hours later. The 7th wave of people who came here died on the spot, and 5 of them managed to escape. Here, there were only a few unmanned fishing boats left. And Han Fei was sitting cross-legged in the middle of these fishing boats, covered in blood and flesh. However, this bloody figure could still stretch out his hand, grab a worm-shaped spiritual grass, and swallow it. After 8 hours of struggle, Han Fei felt that he was still not strong enough. This time, if he couldn't break the invisible barrier of the indestructible body art this time, it would be difficult for him to keep his body strong. After swallowing the 4th dry leaf worm grass, Han Fei could no longer make him fat. However, Han Fei's hands were ghastly at this moment, and white bones could be vaguely seen in his flesh and blood. If one paid attention, they would find that the hand bones were glowing. At the bottom of the sea, the hexagon starfish shrank its body, its 6 tentacles shrank together, and its 6 big eyes rolled. It thought that Han Fei had suddenly gone mad. He must be planning to blow himself up. It didn't know how much power the dry leaf worm grass contained. However, judging from Han Fei's posture, it was definitely a lot. 10 hours later. 2 more groups of people arrived. In the distance, there seemed to be a fishing boat coming across the sky. On the spot, the people on the 2 fishing boats said to each other via voice transmission, "Let's work together. Otherwise, no matter which of us attacks alone, I'm afraid we can't defeat those weird creatures underwater." In the sky, the fishing boat that rushed over shouted, "Guys, wait a moment. Can you wait for us?" However, as soon as he shouted, the 7 people on the 2 fishing boats closest to Han Fei immediately began to take action. 7 people came from 7 different directions. However, in the blink of an eye, one person was dragged to the bottom of the sea, and another was hit head-on by Little Gold, whose internal organs were all shattered. Someone was bitten to death by Little Black. But there were still 3 people not far from Han Fei. In an instant, the phantoms of spiritual beasts, contractual spiritual beasts, and spiritual weapons broke through the air, trying to kill Han Fei. But more than 30 blue sea wandering dragon daggers suddenly appeared around Han Fei. The surging daggers surrounded Han Fei and blocked those attacks. Immediately afterward, more than 30 daggers of spiritual energy divided into 3 waves and attacked the 3 people respectively. Unable to kill Han Fei with one blow, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, Little Gold, and Little Black immediately pounced on him. Before the fishing boat in the sky landed, the 7 people were all killed. They were so scared that they hurriedly stopped the fishing boat and dared not move forward. Seeing this scene, 2 fishing boats coming from other directions also saw this scene. Han Fei could feel these people's emotions. Here comes the consequence of deliberately letting those people go. There was no such thing as mercy in the level 3 fishery. Even if you didn't kill people, others would kill you. The reason why Han Fei let them go was that he wanted them to inform others. Even if they didn't inform others, since the 2 dragon boats were here and they were so seriously injured, they would still be targeted by others. The end result was that more and more people knew that Han Fei was here. 6 hours later, the number of empty fishing boats around Han Fei had reached 7, but none of them attacked. The people on these 7 fishing boats were not far away from each other, and they were talking to each other via voice transmission. Someone suggested, "Why don't we attack together?" Someone frowned. Han Fei is weird. Look here, there are nearly 20 empty fishing boats. How many people do you think have died? Someone shouted, "Don't tell me he can scare off dozens of people on our ships all by himself." Someone suggested, "Why don't we wait for another half an hour?" Everyone was silent. Whoever attacked first would definitely be in danger. Han Fei had completely revealed his trump card. The strength of the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Gold was extremely shocking. No one was willing to be the first to court death. If they waited for more cannon fodder, Han Fei would definitely die under the crowd tactic. Deduce. Han Fei knew that he couldn't resist anymore, so he began to deduce the true spirit fishing art. Above the sky, dark clouds were densely covered, and in the clouds, thunder was rumbling. After several minutes, between heaven and earth, the wind was surging, and there was even a tornado forming in the distance. It suddenly rained cats and dogs. During this period, 2 more fishing boats appeared in the sky. For a moment, many people panicked. If there were more people, they wouldn't be able to divide them. At that time, another batch of people would die in the battle. Damn it, why does the weather change so suddenly? Let's do it. He's alone. How many spiritual beasts can he have? He's fighting for his life. He'll die sooner or later. Nobody thought that the weather had anything to do with Han Fei, because it was impossible for a human to shake the weather. They just guessed that something might have happened in the seaborne prairie. However, the affairs of the seaborne prairie weren't something that ordinary people could meddle in, so they didn't care. Kill him. There was no telling who shouted first, but in an instant, as many as 30 people charged at Han Fei. However, when they just stepped within 100 meters of Han Fei, dozens of lightning bolts fell from the sky. Rumble, the lightning flashed in the sky, and dozens of people were directly struck into charcoal. More than half of the 30 people were killed by the lightning. The remaining 10 or so people were all slapped into the water with electric arcs surging on their bodies. Swish, 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 among them, half of them directly crushed their flash stones and instantly vanished on the spot. Some of them didn't have flash stones. They were all shocked. Why did lightning fall from the sky? In the distance, the 2 fishing boats that were already close turned around and fled. What did they see? Dozens of lightning bolts suddenly fell, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of people disappeared without a trace. Rumble, the second lightning fell, and Han Fei vomited another mouthful of blood after being hit. His muscles bulged, and his veins floated in his flesh and blood. This time, because there was no one else in the way, Han Fei was hit directly. But Han Fei was sitting in the water. When the lightning entered the water, the seawater within 100 meters exploded, and the waves rose to a height of nearly 100 meters. Run, run, many fishing boats that were coming all stopped dozens of kilometers away. Those who were closer immediately ran for their lives. Lightning was something that did not recognize people. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.